Hello everyone and welcome to our Virtual Discovery Day on managing your well-being with type 1. My name is Sarah, and as well as being your host today, I'm also the Community Events Officer here at JDRF UK. Thank you all so much for being here. Today actually marks the first Saturday after Blue Monday, so we really hope this event brings you some light and guidance. So for a bit of back insight, especially for anyone who is joining us for the first time, we are JDRF and we are the world's leading type 1 diabetes research charity. So since we were founded in 1970 by several parents of children with type 1, we have funded over £2 billion worth of research. We have over 400 active studies taking place in 21 countries. And from a UK perspective, we have over 20 projects as well as 19 ongoing clinical trials taking place. JDRF's mission, therefore, is to improve lives today and tomorrow by accelerating life-changing breakthroughs to cure, prevent, and treat type 1 and its complications. Our mission for these Discovery Days is to provide everyone affected with valuable information, connection, and inspiration on a variety of important topics to help you and your loved ones feel supported. Throughout these events, you will find out about the latest research progress from expert guest speakers, hear inspirational talks from a range of lived experience speakers, hear updates from and be able to ask questions to several technology companies, and as a result, feel part of a larger community. Today, we're focusing our attention on well-being, as you know, as we understand that managing your type 1 diabetes day in and day out can be tough. Whether you're newly diagnosed or have been living with the condition for some time, it's really important to be aware of the ways in which you can gain support and look after your well-being when type 1 feels overwhelming. In this event, we will be talking through the different areas of well-being, showcase different experiences whilst managing type 1, and share advice and resources that could make the emotional side of type 1 just that little bit easier for you or your loved ones. So before we hear from our first speaker, I'd like to extend a special thank you to our industry partners, as these events are only possible with their support. So massive thank you to Abbott, Dexcom, Insulet, Medtrum, and Ypsomed. So throughout today's event, if you have any questions at any point for our speakers or the technology companies, please leave a comment as they will get back to you. I'd also like to encourage everyone on this call to get to know each other and to use the comments feature to talk amongst yourselves and share your experiences of managing type 1. One of the best things about these virtual events is how interactive they can be in the comments section, so please make sure to get involved. We will also be dropping in some really useful resources throughout today's event, so please keep an eye out for them, although it is worth noting that the platform will stay open until about 1:30 if anyone does want to go back and have a read through. So we've got a very exciting lineup this morning, so huge thank you to everyone for joining us. Just a couple of things to note is that our first comfort break will take place around 11 o'clock and our second one around 12, just to give you guys some time to grab some refreshments, and then we will finish up around 1 p.m. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Josie Clarkson, to give us an update on the research JDRF is currently funding.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for coming to this JDRF Discovery Day. My name is Josie Clarkson and I am the Research Communications Lead here at JDRF UK. So I'm in charge of getting all of the amazing JDRF funded research that all our supporters like you are helping us to fund into the hands of people who need to know about it the most, which is everyone affected by type 1. So I'm here today to talk about the mental health research that JDRF are working on. And the reason we do this is because, unfortunately, due to the huge mental burden of type 1, people living with type 1 and those affected by it are unfortunately more likely to experience mental health conditions such as anxiety, depression, and disordered eating, which can in turn lead to poorer blood glucose management. And because of this, we've developed a strategy to improve psychosocial well-being. Psychosocial is a word which combines psychological factors with aspects of the surrounding social environment and the effect that all of those things combined have on our physical and mental wellness. So our new psychosocial wellbeing strategy aims to support research initiatives to improve psychosocial health and outcomes for people with type 1. So this means funding research that really tackles the problems that lead to poorer mental health in people with type 1. And so far, we have supported 24 researchers through our Diabetes Psychology Fellowship Programme. Another aim of this strategy is to increase the number of psychologists trained in type 1 and provide support to those psychologists, and also provide access for people with type 1 to those psychologists. And through this strategy, we aim to reduce the significant daily burden of type 1 for as many people as possible while we continue our search for cures. So it's not instead of our work to find a cure for type 1. This is part of our improving lives component of our research, which aims to help people who already have type 1 while we hunt for a cure. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple of research projects which we're funding in the mental health space. So the first is Dr. Emma Berry, who is a wonderful researcher at Queen's University Belfast. And she is developing a digital psychosocial wellbeing screening and monitoring tool. So best practice guidelines here in the UK recommend that psychosocial screening should be a part of routine diabetes healthcare. But as I'm sure you'll probably identify with, this isn't always the case. And it's not healthcare professionals' fault. We don't have an effective way for healthcare professionals to assess and monitor the well-being of people with type 1. The assessment tools they have on offer are time-consuming, often inaccurate, and not empowering for people with type 1, which has led to a gap in psychosocial support, especially for young people with type 1. Emma aims to develop a more effective way to assess, monitor, and support mental health in young people with type 1. She'll work with a digital health company to deliver a series of patient and public involvement workshops, which means working with people with lived experience of type 1 and healthcare professionals to create this digital psychosocial wellbeing tool. So it's really, people with type 1 are involved throughout to make sure it's really something that they want and can use. Once this tool's been developed, Emma will then evaluate its usefulness and practicality as part of routine diabetes care with 12 people with type 1 from her clinic who are aged 13 to 18 years. So we need to make sure that this is useful for both people with type 1 and healthcare professionals so that it will actually work in practice. She hopes that this will improve communication between people with type 1 and the healthcare professionals about psychosocial well-being, because this is the first step to improving well-being through the introduction of targeted support. Next up, we have Dr. Leslie Johnson, who we are funding through our partnership with the MQ Mental Health Research Foundation. The MQ Mental Health Research Foundation fund research that leads to better treatments, better support, and faster diagnoses for everyone affected by mental illness. So we're working with them to support Leslie, who aims to provide better care for adults with type 1 and depression. A care model already exists for people with type 2 diabetes, which involves interventions including support with self-management from a care coordinator who's not a doctor, decision support tools, and specialist case reviews. It's been shown to substantially benefit the mental and physical health of people with type 2 by reducing blood sugar levels and symptoms of depression and anxiety. So Leslie hopes to be able to adapt this model for people with type 1, and she'll work with people with type 1 and healthcare professionals and leaders to adapt this model. Leslie will then test the model on 40 adults with type 1 who have clinically significant symptoms of depression, and she'll compare their depressive symptoms, anxiety scores, and HbA1c levels before the study versus after the study to see if her tool has actually managed to help support them and improve their blood sugar control. She'll also compare these measures to people who didn't receive the extra care. So there'll be a group who's receiving this extra model of care and those who won't, to see if not only it helps people before and after, but also compared to people who don't have the care at all. So these are just two of the research projects we are currently funding to help people's mental health with type 1. But there's also steady advancements in type 1 treatments and technology, which help to reduce the mental burden of type 1. So we hope that thanks to these advances in technology and our psychosocial wellbeing strategy and all this new research that we're fueling and supporting, that we can reduce the effect that type 1 has on mental health and improve the support available for people who are struggling. Thank you very much for listening, and please feel free to email me if you have any questions about any of our research, not just that related to mental health.
Thank you so much, Josie, for that brilliant update. Some incredible work being done at the moment, which is so important to highlight. If you have any questions for Josie, please send her an email, which you can see below, and she'll be happy to give you some more information. So our next guest is here today to share their lived experience of type 1, as well as their passion in the importance of peer support for mental well-being. Over to you, Tom.
Hi guys, Tom here from Diabetes Chat. Thank you, Sarah, for the invite to speak here for JDRF today, talking about managing my well-being with type 1 diabetes. So I'm going to go through a few things for you today, but in the chat box, please get involved. What do you do to manage your well-being with type 1 diabetes? And you can share this with the community. And later on, I'm sure the team will bring a few of your messages up to the screen, and you can share within the community what you do to manage your well-being with your type 1 diabetes. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey, a bit about me and my background and my diabetes roadmap. I'll talk about peer support and diabetes chat, and I'll talk about my well-being. So a little bit about me. So I'm Tom. I am 34. I was born in Wales, and that's where I met my wife in Abbott University. We married in 2018. I'm an early years teacher. We have two children, Harry and Ella. You can see them in the top left corner there. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in November 2006. I was 17 years old. And you can see that I've been living with diabetes half my life now. So let's have a look at my sort of roadmap of my journey with diabetes. So like I said, I was diagnosed in 2006 and I had Lantus and Novorapid. In 2015 is when I had a change of insulin, where I split Lavamere AM and PM. And in 2020 is when I had my first Daphne experience going on the Daphne course. So that was 14 years after I was diagnosed type 1 diabetic. I had education and I had the opportunity to meet people and see people and connect with people. And then it wasn't until February 2022 I sort of started to embrace my diabetes a little bit more, started talking and seeing and connecting with people on social media and also in real life, out and about with my friends and my family, and started to feel a bit more confident. And this really helped my mental health and my well-being. And I'll talk about this later on. And the technology really transitioned my mindset in terms of feeling more positive about my diabetes and mental health with the Libre 2, going on to smart insulin pens, and seeing the data in CGM format in terms of having the data available for me in my work as an early years teacher was really important. And it was great to be able to see the trends of the arrows, to make decisions and have that real life data available. And the future, who knows? But it's really exciting. So I have 4 questions I want to sort of reflect on. Really, is how did I feel before 2022? So before I set up Diabetes Chat, and like I said, I had Daphne Education in 2020, and before that, I was completely alone. I didn't connect with anyone really. I only saw the odd person when I went to a clinic appointment, but that was someone across the hallway. But I really felt alone. I felt embarrassed. I felt it was my fault. I didn't really engage fully in my diabetes as best as I could or want to or should. And it was probably a time that I felt diabetes was controlling me, and I wasn't controlling diabetes as well as I am now. How did I manage my well-being with type 1 diabetes? Well, first and foremost, I don't think I've really understood what sort of mental health and well-being meant in relation to type 1 diabetes. I guess I just went along with life. I kept going, kept doing what I needed to do in all walks of life, being a parent or a teacher or just a person. And I didn't really understand it, the burden of the pressures of living with diabetes. But reflecting back now, I can kind of see the sort of low points I had. How do I feel now is a big question. And I feel that since setting up Diabetes Chat, I have felt more connected in my diabetes. I feel like I'm taking more control of my diabetes. And this has helped me manage my well-being and my mental health status. I feel that I have friends and I have people who I can connect with and talk to within the community. And from that, I've got really good friends now who we meet up and we go to do different social events. So it's brought friendships along as well. I don't blame myself anymore. I don't feel alone. I feel that this has helped me sort of manage my well-being and understand it through the guest speakers that we have in Diabetes Chat. We've had healthcare professionals, psychologists who have come on and explained what well-being is, what mental health is, what it looks like. And it's enabled me to reflect on this, and having a community as well by your side who have your back is really important, and it really helps that mental well-being load. So let's have a look. Diabetes Chat. I want to share a little bit about what Diabetes Chat is. So why did it start? So like I said, I set it up in February 2022 from an idea that I felt safe. I was ready to talk. It took me 16 years to want to talk, and it changed where I had a letter through the door to go on Libra 2, and my mindset, my positive mindset changed, and my mental well-being changed. I felt positive, and I was ready to talk and connect with people. So I set up a community chat, and Diabetes Chat has just literally grown and grown, when now we do in peer support sessions at our JDRF Discovery Days. So the mission behind Diabetes Chat is to connect with people who have diabetes or have connections to it. So it could be someone who's living with diabetes. It might be a parent, a carer, a healthcare professional from all over the world. So we're inclusive communities for all types of diabetes, where we share ideas and experiences. We raise awareness. We unite together. And this all comes together and helps that sort of positive mindset and that mental well-being. And that is what the strength of community and peer support is all about. So here you can see a little bit about the team, and all 9 people of the team have diabetes, different types of diabetes, and it's important to share that. And we're a very inclusive community where we welcome all types of diabetes to come on and talk and share and learn their experiences together. Here are some of the things that we've done in our community, where we host our guest speaker chats with healthcare professionals, diabetes advocates, sports athletes. We've hosted special events like our parent carer night. We do a research event, one upcoming soon. We did a virtual conference this year on World Diabetes Day, connect with people all over the world, talking about different topics, including mental well-being, health. And we also do some special events, Diabetes Chat Stories events, talking about smart pens. We talked about hybrid closed loop. And these are some other events that we do to engage with the community. So managing your well-being with type 1 diabetes. So it can be like you're spinning loads and loads of plates. And this is a graphic that I've got from Tom Crabtree, that you're constantly thinking about lots of things all the time, and this can impact on your sort of mental well-being and mental status, where you're constantly thinking of things on top of everything else that you're doing in your day-to-day life, from the second you get up in the morning and till the end of the day. You're always thinking, making them 180 decisions a day. And it is like you are spinning loads of plates. And this can have an impact on how you feel and your mental well-being. And it's hard. And having people to talk to and share experiences, friends, families, colleagues, it is very important. And this will help maybe spin a few of these plates. And there are so many factors. You might have seen this from Diatribe before, where there's so many factors that can affect your blood glucose levels. And this, again, can impact your mood and your mindset and your mental health and well-being. And it's important to look at this and say, look, diabetes is hard. It is relentless. It's 24/7. It's like them spinning plates. It's always there. And it is okay to not have a good day. You can always restart and try again. It is absolutely fine. And here's a little picture of people at the JDRF Discovery Day in London, where we got our balloons and we had a bit of fun. We wrote on our balloons, what does peer support mean to you? And we looked at, and this really helped with sort of togetherness and mental well-being. And we got the balloons and we had a little sort of throw round, and it sort of signified that we do have our high moments, we do have our low moments, and it is okay. And when we hit the floor, we get back up. And it was really cool and interactive because people were helping each other, hitting each other's balloons, and it sort of signified that we have each other's back and that we can all be there together to help with each other. And again, this comes back full circle about mental well-being, and it's so important. These are some things that I really believe highlight what peer support is about, and it brings positive mindsets for well-being in terms of making friends and buddies, learning new things, sharing their lived experiences, not feeling alone. I talked about that before. Talking to people, normalizing things and connecting, and all these sort of things that Diabetes Chat really empower and believe in really help that sort of well-being and mental health. And it's so important. And here are some lovely pictures that show what peer support is. And through this, it brings out positivity, it brings out a positive mindset, and also helps with mental well-being. Again, this is some visuals of people who've joined the Diabetes Chat, and you can see people are really excited and even doing their day-to-day living things, where Mama Warriors is listening while ironing, and people are really excited about joining in the chat. And these are some of the pictures that we've seen when we've run our workshops this year, our Discovery Days for JDRF. And this is what people have said peer support means to them: shared experiences, therapy, friendships, listening, talking, helping each other out, empathy, relief, connection, support, understanding, teamwork. And again, this for me brings out the importance of community and peer support, and equally that helps you with your mental health and well-being, not being alone and having other people around you that are wearing that t-shirt, who are spinning them same plates as you. So my sort of final messages I want you to hopefully take away from this today, I hope you've enjoyed it and I found it quite useful, is: one, talking is important, and that can be to a family member, a colleague, a friend, whoever it is. It might be a stranger, and it is important that you are able to talk and share what you need to share, and find your community wherever it is. It might be online, it might be in person, it might be at a event that you go to, but find people like-minded that are going through exactly the same as you. And this also, guys, can be people who don't have diabetes but are parents, carers, because they will be going through the same sort of feelings, and it does impact on them and their mental health and their well-being. So it's important that you do talk and find people who are going through similar things. And last thing is that you are awesome, that you are doing a fantastic job in everything that you are doing to manage your diabetes. It is hard. It is relentless. You are spinning them plates, and each day is a new day. So you can start again. So when your sort of balloon is low, you can get straight back up, start again. And this is all okay. And this will help you sort of re-energize and start again. And it'll hopefully help with your mental health and well-being. So final bits for me is you can check us out on our social medias, on Twitter X at diabetes_diabetes chat. Also use the hashtag diabetes chat, and you'll see lots and lots of comments from the community where people ask questions, share experiences, again, talking, and this helps and has a positive impact for mental health and well-being. We're also on Instagram. Check us out there. Also on YouTube with all our podcasts and guest speaker chats, and on our website, diabeteschat.net. Finally, this is what's to come over the next 2 months in Diabetes Chat with our guest speakers. Each week we host a different guest speaker or topic chat night, and this is what's coming up. We have some fantastic speakers who will be coming on and sharing their lived experiences, as well as healthcare professionals. We have a research event and an open forum chat night where we can talk and we can all come together from all around the world and be able to share experiences, talk, connect with people. And this, again, helps with your mental health and well-being. So thank you so much, JDRF, for the invite today. I hope that you guys have really enjoyed this little chat, talking a little bit about me and my journey with diabetes, a little bit about peer support and diabetes chat, and also reflecting it back about well-being and mental health. And hopefully that's helped you. And I look forward to seeing some of your comments in the chat box of what you guys do to help you manage your diabetes with your well-being. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tom, for sharing a little bit about your journey with type 1 and well-being, and the very insightful introduction to Diabetes Chat. If you don't know Diabetes Chat, definitely get to know. We're now going to be hearing from the wonderful DigiBeat, who are here today to tell us all about their new psychological support tool. Thank you very much for being here today, Maddie. I will hand over you to introduce yourself and DigiBeat.
Thanks very much, Sarah, and everybody at JDRF. It's a real pleasure to present the new Coping with Diabetes platform for you today. So I'm Maddie Julian, I'm CEO of DigiBeat, and most importantly, I'm parent to a young child with type 1 diabetes who's 9 now and lived with diabetes for about 7.5 years. So we are walking the walk, and we are having all the challenges that you are. We are working with JDRF and the National Diabetes Network and the NHS, where we're centrally commissioned to provide these really new valuable resources to you. So today I'm going to be talking about a new platform within a platform, Coping with Diabetes, and I hope you enjoy this really powerful piece of work. So I'll start sharing now. So the new Coping with Diabetes platform was commissioned by JDRF after a family came to them and really articulated the need after their young person, who's a bit older now, has been really through the mill with their diabetes, and they recognise that really so many young people struggle with mental health and diabetes, and there just isn't enough psychologists. But this platform really is about early intervention. So it's about thinking about how we frame our thinking around diabetes and supporting people to develop the resilience they need to cope with all the different challenges. But it's not a substitute for seeing a psychologist at all. It's really kind of a first port of call, if you like. So an opportunity to explore some resources to help manage difficult feelings around diabetes. So we've worked with the National Diabetes Network and the Psychology Network, young people and expert users who have lived experience to come together over a course of nearly 18 months to develop these resources, firstly for 10 to 14-year-olds, but then we'll be looking at developing them now for all the different ages and parents as well. So the Coping with Diabetes button is now live actually in Leeds. It's being tested, but it will be rolled out across the country on the back of the testing and with any necessary amends or clinical safety features that need to be put in place. So there's 6 different areas identified by psychologists and young people. There's you are not alone, be kind to your mind, it's not fair, it's too much, arguments and managing school. And these were the common difficulties that this age group really found. And I'm going to take you through these different areas and show you a flavour of some of these resources. So we'll start here on You Are Not Alone. If we click on this section, and you can see there's resources at the top, there's films and things to read and watch and do. So first of all, we hear some young people talking about how they feel that they're not alone.
Living with diabetes sometimes can be very rocky.
Sometimes it's irritating, but you know, you get used to it.
Diabetes can be difficult at times because there's so much unpredictability of it.
Well, like hypos in the night, I have to rely on my mum, which I'm very thankful of that she hears it. So that's like the main challenge.
When I'm high, sometimes it can be quite annoying to eat stuff because I'm not allowed to eat stuff sometimes when I'm really high, and I have to wait up to an hour or 2 to have something to eat.
So we all have these challenges, don't we? And there's some practical support here. So how do we share our stories with others? How can we talk to others? So it's really important that young people are introduced to this, maybe through their parents, because it might be their parents who've got the account at the moment if they're under 13. But, you know, be creative, get on social media, share your story with others. You know, and then there's some prompts really. Where can you share your story? So for the young people to work through. And then there's some thoughts around how we all have these emotions and why.
You are one of over 8 million people living with type 1 diabetes worldwide. Approximately 1.5 million of these people are under the age of 20, yet you might be the only person living with type 1 diabetes in your class, year or school, in your out-of-school clubs or in your family. This can be difficult at times as it can be hard to feel understood by people around you who aren't living with type 1 diabetes. During this part of your life, friends are very important to you, and feeling different can be something that you might find difficult. This is partly because at this age, you are working out who you are as a person, your identity. You learn some of this through your friendships, who you feel you connect well with, and those who you don't.
And so there we hear about, you know, why you might feel that, and then we look at our 3 emotional systems and why maybe our threat system sometimes takes over. And we can read a little bit about this, and there's more information in this in one of the other sections. But how do we really bring online our soothing system? So how do we activate some peace within our mind? And this will take you through that. And after each section, you then go and save. So you save, you're prompted to save, and this takes you through all the different sections. And then you can reflect on how and who can help with your diabetes. Record that so you can go back anytime and look at that and just remind yourself that there are people there to help you. And sometimes when we're feeling very stressed, we can't think things through. So when we continue, we're able to then scale how these activities have actually helped us with our diabetes management and maybe how we feel about diabetes. And then there'll be some opportunity to feedback. So we continue with that once we've scaled it, and if we feel it's helped, and then we'll find that leaves start developing on our tree as we're growing, and you know, giving ourselves some opportunities to understand our feelings a little bit more. So then we're going to have a look now. We're going to go on to the Kind to Your Mind section. So in this section, we're going to have a look at young people and how they feel about the critical self-talk sometimes and getting around that.
It's great to have strengths that come out of diabetes because it's positive and it's the accomplishments that you've gained throughout having it, because it sucks to have diabetes, so it's nice to have something that you're getting out of it.
A strength that I have developed is not letting it take over my life and make me different.
You never really know what's going on with someone, so it teaches you to just be a bit more patient, to be a little bit more understanding.
Don't treat anyone else differently because of how they are or how they look.
you kind of can't just say no to stuff because there's more of a, like I said, there's more of a feeling of more resilience with trying things. So I guess there's always that feeling of you kind of have to try something, otherwise, you know, you're going to miss out.
It's helped me get through exams easier and manage different things and cope with balancing life, because I've had to balance this for the last 9 years.
And diabetes does teach you a lot of resilience, doesn't it? You really have to manage so much in your life. So we save that section, and then there's some practical breathing exercises, which I know you're going to be doing through the day. We'll just show you a quick example of one of them.
Before we begin, make sure you're in a comfortable position. Look at the screen in front of you. See if you can breathe following the ball around the shape on the screen. Listen to the instructions to help you breathe around the shape.
And so these are really to give you some guided moments of deep breaths and managing, enable really to our minds to sort of quieten down. We're now going to listen to some calming images to help us really with self-compassion.
We often find it easier to be kind to others than to ourselves, but it's such an important skill to develop and practice to help with our well-being. Being kind to yourself, which is known as self-compassion, has been linked with higher levels of happiness, curiosity, connecting positively with others, and motivation to learn and grow. It can be helpful when facing stresses. This might include stress associated with living with diabetes, such as blood glucose levels being out of range, or frustration with other people trying to help with diabetes care. Self-compassion helps to activate that green soothing circle in the 3 circles model, and to bring emotional balance. Being able to bring kindness to the day-to-day challenges and the ups and downs of living with diabetes can help with resilience, or the ability to keep working to care for diabetes.
So how can you be kind to yourself? How can we bring kindness into our world? We've got some mindfulness resources to support you with this within this part of the app as well. And again, you can work through those if you want to, and then you can save and move on. And then we have some affirmations. These are your affirmations other young people have submitted to us, but maybe you can write some of your own now in the reflections and revisit these as well. So what strengths will help you? What resilience have you made? And then you can congratulate yourself for completing this section and rate the activities and how they've helped you. So really some very practical tips there to help you with managing being kind to your mind and helping yourself. We're now going to have a look at the It's Not Fair section, and diabetes isn't fair, and young people in this section really acknowledge that. But we're going to start first of all with a young person really contemplating this for us.
Do you ever find yourself thinking it's not fair? This is something that most people living with diabetes will think about at some point. You might find that it bothers you more at some times and less at others. For example, it might bother you more at times when there is lots of change, such as moving up to high school. It might bother you more when you have to do something others without diabetes don't have to do, such as treating a hypo during PE or having to wait after giving insulin before eating.
So again, and then we've got a game because, you know, when we're waiting 15 minutes for food, it's really, really frustrating, isn't it? And so we've got a game in the app here, which we hope we can write into care plans actually to say, yes, yeah, let these young people use this game as a way of, you know, doing something that's outside of diabetes whilst they have to wait for food or wait for insulin to work, etc. This game's actually quite tricky. It looks easy, but it's actually quite tricky. There'll be more games that we'll be developing as part of the next phase. But yeah, you can hide the solution, find the solution, and have a go and set the timer. And then, of course, when the timer goes off, it'll be time for you to eat your meal or whatever. So hopefully that will be of fun and a bit of interest for you as well. So or for your young person. So then we're going to look at some practical things as well. So other ideas for waiting, and what else can you do if you didn't want to play a game on your phone? You can do other activities.
It's really common to have thoughts like, why me? And it's not fair when you're living with diabetes. It can be important to remind yourself that it's okay to have these thoughts and the feelings that go with them, such as feeling upset, frustrated.
And so this is acknowledgement really that relationships are important and how do we talk about them? And then finally we leave with a film from young people talking about why it's not fair.
When I was younger, when all my friends was playing together and I was hypo, it just felt like it wasn't fair that I couldn't be with them at the same time as they were.
I used to, when I was quite younger, when I was about 13, 14, think that diabetes was always unfair and that it's, never really has been fair and still probably isn't fair. I couldn't go to these sleepovers with my grandparents or with friends or even go to parties and just eat some of the food that is there.
Sometimes there's always aspects of it where you're just kind of like, why? There's always times when you want to do something and then, for example, if I'm watching a film and I bought some snacks but then I go really high so I can't eat those snacks, I'm like, great, yeah. Or if I'm about to do some kind of sporting thing and then you go low and you have to sit out, you're just like, annoying.
I find myself finding that it's not fair I have diabetes when I can feel that there's a difference between me and other people around me. So if I'm having a hypo whereas everybody else is doing something else, I always feel like it's not fair, why is it me when everybody else gets to do something and I don't get to do it?
So again, these will be different for different ages, but then an opportunity to fill in some reflective questions as well about why things are not fair and how you can support yourself to feel better about your diabetes. So then we review this section and we move on. And then I think we're into the last couple of sections now. So we will just move into It's Too Much. And the It's Too Much section, so again, we've got more leaves on the tree now. The It's Too Much section takes us into some further peer support. We have the hedgehog, which we're going to preview for you later, and then some resources around the hedgehog. So thinking about that kind of critical thinking. So we'll see that now.
Sometimes it can feel hard living with diabetes. Just like Jake and Anisha, it can feel like diabetes has taken over your life sometimes. It can be hard to see around it or be able to do the things that you enjoy. It can get so big it feels harder to take care of. It can be helpful to give diabetes a character. This might be like an animal like Jake and Anisha, or it might be a shape, a person, or a thing. Giving diabetes a character can make it easier to talk about. It can also help you to think about how diabetes is affecting you and other people. It might even be helpful in finding ways to work together when it's feeling tricky.
So really thinking about that and then listening to young people now.
Diabetes can feel like it's too much when there's loads of different things that are coming at the same time and it becomes overwhelming and hard to deal with.
Sometimes you can see it for so long it just kind of goes over the top. Like imagining it as like a pot of water. Every time it builds up and then one day you just,
When you're about to go out and your levels are low, your levels are high and you can't do the things that you wanted to do because you've got to treat it, I think it becomes really hard to deal with.
So really important to see other young people saying those things, isn't it? And we can upload an image here this is about your diabetes creature, and then we'll move on, and then you can celebrate success here. So this is an opportunity. Are we celebrating our own successes? When you're giving insulin at school, are you celebrating that? Are you able to make sure that you're giving yourself the credit where credit's due for really managing type 1, because it's very difficult to do everything, isn't it, all the time? And we often beat ourselves up for what we're not doing, but don't give ourselves credit. So how do we feel when things are tricky? And how do we give ourselves, build up a story of things that are going well so that we can really give ourselves that credit?
Have you ever felt like your mind's a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts? That's completely normal, and one possible explanation is that our brain operates in 3 main systems: the drive system, the soothing system, and the threat system. Have you ever had any of these thoughts? I can't get anything right. What have I done wrong now? It's my fault. Everyone else is managing their diabetes better than me. I'm trying so hard and it isn't good enough. Why can't I do this one thing? I'm totally done with this. What's the point in doing this every day when it always goes wrong? These thoughts are because of our red circle, the threat system. Think of it as our personal alarm. It keeps us safe from dangers. When we're here, we might feel scared, nervous, unsafe, or even angry. Our body might want to fight, run away, or just freeze. This is all because of fear and stress hormones, which our body releases to keep us safe from danger. This system would rather be wrong 100 times than miss something important, and it can also be set off by our thinking and our imagination. It can be more tricky when you're living with type 1 diabetes, as sometimes the symptoms of our hypo can be similar to the threat response. It can always be a good idea to check your glucose levels.
So again, and then we've got another video here.
Let's imagine that your life is you sailing in the sea towards an island. On the island are all your life goals and hopes. We can think of getting a diagnosis of diabetes or other experiences as bad weather that disrupt your journey and prevent you from sailing forwards. It might be difficult, uncomfortable and unpleasant. The island is still in front of you with everything you want from life.
Okay, so you can see the full version obviously in the app. And then there's top tips for goal setting and thinking about SMART goals. How can we put some really, measurable things in to help us achieve and feel like we're achieving success even when things are difficult? And so you can enter your own SMART goals here if you want to, maybe about managing your diabetes a little bit more. And then you can put in here some scaling of how you felt that resource has helped you. So we're going to quickly move on to the next section, which is arguments. And we know that arguments in the family are really, really tricky with type 1 diabetes. And we'll hear now how the mammoth helps us with thinking something about this and reflecting on our thoughts.
How to manage a mammoth. This is me. I am Jake. I am 8. I go to Castle Primary School. My teacher is Mr. Williams. The most important things to me are football, building cool stuff, my friends and my mum. This is Mum. Mum is Rachel. Mum is 35. Mum works in an office. It's very boring, but she gets to sit in a spinny chair. The most important things to Mum are her job, her friends, going running, coffee, and me. This is Mel, the diabetes mammoth. Mel has been living with us since I was 3. Sometimes Mel's okay and I don't mind him, but sometimes he doesn't behave and he's a big problem. Mel's a bit magic because he grows when my diabetes is being a problem.
So hear a little bit more by watching the full of a mammoth in the app, and then there's some activities there to help you kind of reflect on that. And then there's some opportunities to reflect on what skills have developed because of your type 1 diabetes. And then there's some thinking now about sharing your stories in families and what creates conflict. So we'll hear a little bit about that now.
Caring for diabetes every day is a big job. Working as a team with your family and friends can really help. It can also sometimes be tricky to work together to care for diabetes. Different people can have different ideas about what or when something needs to be done to care for diabetes.
Oh, I've had this discussion with somebody before. Yeah. It's kind of just like when somebody gets an idea, maybe if you've accidentally missed a bolus or something else, and they get really annoyed at you, and it's just like, there's people who are still, like, we're still kids either way. It's not our fault. Like, people forget things, and people don't seem to realise that. And it's just like, it's not exactly my fault. Like, I do it so much, and I probably should know it by now, but sometimes you just forget.
I think sometimes my mum wants me to constantly check my levels to make sure I'm okay, but I think sometimes I get annoyed, but it's with good intentions.
Well, my dad, he's always asking what's my sugar, and I'm fine and I don't need to check it.
I don't mind questions, but when people listen to your answer and they keep asking the same question over and over and over and over again.
So we all know that, don't we? And it causes conflict at home. So how can we talk to our families better? When's the right moment? You know, how can we create the right environment? How can we help people to understand that their language matters to us? And so this is some tips really in terms of communication, and maybe looking at other ways to communicate. Words you'd rather hear, and you can record then some reflections on that to help you later. And then you can continue that section, and you can again rate the activity and how you found it, getting those lovely leaves on your tree and it's growing, and you're growing your resilience and your self-esteem around your diabetes. And then finally, we're going to look at managing school, because school is one of the biggest things that young people face. So we're going to have a quick look now about what young people say about managing school, and then look at the activities within that. So just a flavour of it, more in the actual app itself, obviously.
High school was quite difficult for me because the teachers didn't really understand me as a diabetic, because other people obviously are different for their own reasons.
I think diabetes can be difficult at school because I think you've got to be conscious about your levels, and when you're eating lunch or you're having a snack at break, you've got to be conscious about how much carbs you've got to give, or you've got to check the carbs, and I think that can make it a bit more difficult compared to what other people have to do.
It can be really annoying. It kind of takes over everything. When you're at school, you just want to get on with it. You don't want to keep having to check numbers. There's always that worry of, has this teacher been told about it? Am I going to get screamed at for taking out my phone or eating in class? I've had so many teachers who I thought knew, who I'd told before, who obviously just forgot, or hadn't read the passport, which everybody has a passport that the teacher's supposed to read before lessons.
In primary school, I used to have the teachers do it for me, and I used to get help and assistance on it, but then when I went into high school, I became more independent and I got used to doing it by myself, and I think there's a change in that, but I think that's also a good change to get used to.
But it's a difficult change, isn't it? And I think hearing young people's difficulties and challenging is really, really important. So, you know, there's some practical exercises here. What can we do when we're stressed at school that nobody knows we're doing, like the noticing exercise, which is mentioned in the app here. There's also some top tips as well. So, you know, what can you share with school? How can you help prepare school? How can you put some things in place to help you manage diabetes in school better? So just some framing around that. And then there's some resources that we're going to go on to as well. There's also some stuff on exams. So we'll save these sections as we go. And then there's some practical resources to help you. So like a screensaver for your phone, if you want one, that you can download on here. And there's also a medical card that you can share with supply teachers and things like that, to help people understand, you know, so you can have these on you, can print them off, and you can pass them to teachers at the beginning so they understand if you're using your phone, etc. So what would you want to say to friends? You can plan all this stuff within the app, and when people ask you difficult questions. So you can save that and again rate it. So that kind of comes to the end of you see our tree now is full of lovely leaves, and you can revisit these resources then at any time. But we've helped this age group really to build up a bank of resources and some thinking and some strategies to help with those difficult moments of talking about diabetes, of feeling alone with diabetes. And yeah, so I think we hope you find this incredibly useful. The young people have put a lot of work into it. with huge thanks really to the psychologists and the young people who have been involved in developing these resources with us. And if you would like to come and join us for phase 2, we would love you to be involved. Please email app@digibeat.org. We'll be looking for people for different ages and different user groups to work with the next phase, because we'll be having parents' resources as well, older young people's resources and children's resources. So lots to do, but a really good start, and with huge thanks to JDRF for funding this really important piece of work. So thank you very much. And I should also say Rose Stewart, who will be has been a real guiding light in this, and Becky, our psychologist at Leeds, who's voiced over a lot of the resources that you'll hear as well from the psychologist point of view. So thank you very much, and goodbye for now.
Thank you very much, Maddie, and everyone at DigiBeat for the fantastic work that you're doing, and for being here today answering some questions in the comments section as well. If you do have any questions, please keep them coming in the comments section. But next up, we have a 2-minute presentation from Fabian from Abbott. Again, if you have any questions, the Abbott team is here today to answer them in the comments section. Thank you very much for being here. Fabian, over to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Fabienne Garceau, Community and Consumer Relations Manager for Abbott's Diabetes Care business. At Abbott, we believe people with diabetes should enjoy full and active lives. That's why we're focused on making breakthrough technology accessible and approachable for all. Our groundbreaking sensing tech, Freestyle Libre, is revolutionising how people with diabetes monitor their glucose, and it provides healthcare professionals with more data to make better informed treatment decisions. I'm here today to answer your questions in the comments section on our Freestyle Libre products. But first, here's a short video.
Thank you very much, Fabian, for being here and for Abbott's continued support. So we're now going to take a short 5-minute comfort break. For the first couple of minutes of this break, we're going to play a breathing animation video that DigiBeat mentioned earlier, which we do urge you to try, as it's a brilliant wellbeing resource. And then we're going to follow that with some holding slides with information about how you can get involved with JDRF. So see you all in about 5 minutes, but in the meantime, please get into a comfortable position, relax, and enjoy this 2-minute breathing exercise video.
Before we begin, make sure that you're in a comfortable position. When breathing in, you should slowly take a deep breath in through your nose, then hold. When breathing out, keep your lips together but not tightly shut. Slowly try to push the air all out through your mouth. Breathe to the rhythm of the shape as you watch it grow and shrink. Breathe in through your nose. Hold. And then breathe out. And relax. And again, breathe in through your nose, hold, and breathe out, and relax. One more time, breathe in through your nose, hold your breath, and then breathe out. and relax. Breathe in through your nose. Hold. And then breathe out. And hold. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. Before we begin, make sure
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the 2-minute breathing exercise video and managed to grab a quick refreshment. We're now going to be joined by Claire from Air Liquide. Welcome, Claire.
Hi everybody, thanks Sarah for the introduction. So as Sarah said, I'm Claire, I work for Air Liquide, and I'm just going to talk to you very briefly about the Tandem T-Slim pump. Here I have it in front of me, so it's really nice and small and slimline. Its actual profile is slightly smaller than a credit card. So the Tandem pump can be used as a standalone pump. It is a tethered pump, or you can integrate it with either Dexcom G6 or G7 to give you that advanced hybrid closed loop. And essentially what that means is that the pump will start to decrease your insulin if you're going low. It can suspend it and completely stop it as well. It can also increase the amount of background basal going in, and it can also give you a true automatic correction dose up to a maximum of 6 units if it needs to. So I think a lot of the feedback we get from patients is that it's a really simple, easy, intuitive pump to use, and it has lots of lovely features that you can take advantage of. So one particular feature that's very popular is within the bolus calculator itself, you can physically add up your carbs on the pump rather than having to add them up in your head. So that's a really nice feature. We've also got a rechargeable battery in there. So Tandem to date as a company have saved more than 1 million batteries from landfill. And a full charge on that battery takes between about 60 and 90 minutes, lasts between 5 and 7 days. And it's just a case of a little micro USB socket. You can just plug it in. If you're kind of working on a computer, you can just plug yourself in. It's not a problem. Or you can just, when you disconnect for a bath or shower, you can pop it on charge. One thing I would definitely draw your attention to is our simulator app. You can find this on the Apple or the Android stores by searching Tandem Diabetes T Simulator, and this will give you a full demo feature of the pump. So if you want to hear a little bit more, I am in the background. Please drop your questions in the comments, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Claire, for being here and for Air Liquide's support in making events like these happen. Any questions for Claire, pop them in the comments section and she'll be happy to support. We're now going to watch a short video from Dexcom, and please note that Tamsin from Dexcom is behind the scenes and will answer any questions you may have. Over to you. Thank you so much for being here, Tamsin, and for Dexcom's continued support. We're now going to move on to our next segment of the event, where we're going to hear from a couple of lived experience speakers. It is both an honour and a privilege to introduce our next guest, someone whose journey embodies resilience, strength, and a profound commitment to raising awareness for type 1 diabetes. I will now hand over to my colleague Chris to welcome our very special guest.
Thank you, Sarah, for that great introduction. And now it's my absolute pleasure to introduce a legend of our diabetes community. It's Pete Davis. Now, I don't want to take any of his thunder away from him, so I'm going to allow Pete to introduce himself. So just a massive welcome and a big thank you from all of us at JDRF for your support today, Pete. But tell everybody about yourself in a short introduction.
Okay, well, thank you for such a lovely welcome, Chris. Good to see you again. And yeah, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 1956, believe it or not. And I've had it, despite having had it, I've made the most of my life. I've really had a great life. I was a teacher of design and technology. Wow, what a great subject, eh? In secondary schools for my career. Loved it. But I've been doing lots and lots with diabetes since I retired. And it's great to be here. Thank you for the lovely welcome.
So you're welcome, Pete. And it's, like I said, our absolute pleasure to have you with us. So as we sort of mentioned, and as we hopefully people saw at the bottom of the screen as you joined us, you've lived with type 1 for quite a while. So in your words then, Pete, what's it been like living with type 1 for as long as you have? And you know, the early years, what was it like living with type 1 when you were first diagnosed?
Well, I've never known anything different. I think that's actually quite a blessing. I got it so young. I've not known life without diabetes, and I think that's helped in a lot of ways. It must be very hard to be diagnosed when you're a teenager, and you know what you're missing. But I've just got on and made the most of life. I mean, the technology has changed enormously. I've got here, this was probably the first syringe my mum would have used on me, with a 28mm long needle on it. So you can see it against my, looks quite frightening. And it was stored in a little tin like this, which used to leak methylated spirits. And you used to have these very fine needles, these things. I don't know whether you can see them against that. They're very, very fine wires to keep the needles clean and stop them blocking up. So that's kind of the technology that we used back then. I then came back we lived in Africa for many years, and some bright spark came up with this means of injecting. You pull it back, the needle normally flies off, and it's so powerful, and it shoots into your skin. It's quite a gruesome thing. I think I used it once, and I absolutely loathed it. But there we go. It shows how far technology has come. Probably even bigger changes, I think, with we couldn't test blood. The only people that could test blood was in hospitals. You'd go in and have a blood test, and you'd wait until the following day to get the result over the phone. You know, it was that different. We relied on this little thing here for testing urine, and I've prepared one earlier. There's 5 drops of urine in there. If I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drops in there. And just wait a minute, I need to get a tablet out, and you'll see a wonderful scientific experiment. Yes, rather toxic tablet.
I wonder if we're going to get the same level as what your CGM might tell you now, Pete.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see. There we are. If I hold that up, you can probably see the liquid fizzing, and it'll change colour in a minute. It doesn't take very long. You used to have to do this over a naked flame. The tablets didn't. That were quite a recent thing. Oh, I'm going blue. Or was it green? That's green. So that means I'm probably between 10. When I did this urine test, that's between 10 and 15, something like that. Well, that was probably 10 or 15 minutes ago I did that. And let's have a look at my CGM. Oh, 9.7. So you can see there's quite a big discrepancy there. So it's a very inaccurate, very, very hit and miss means of measuring blood glucose. But we lived in blissful ignorance, really. We didn't know, but we just got on with life and made the most of it, you know. So sorry, I've probably said far too much there.
No, but amazing, Pete, and just to see the differences there in how you had to monitor blood glucose levels, and in that time, not even blood glucose. You know how we now are taking for granted the amazing technology we've got available, and what you were needing to use to measure the levels of glucose which were inside of you is, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to see.
Well,
What
I mean, the lowest level, sorry to interrupt there, Chris, the lowest level was blue, and that could be anything from 0 millimoles per litre up to 10.5. And I was always encouraged to keep above blue because it was a danger area. And so my blood sugar was constantly above 10.5. And I'm very relieved to say I don't have any complications apart from slight background retinopathy, which doesn't affect my sight.
Which is amazing with where you, well, lucky Pete, but at the same time, you've obviously done an incredible job at looking after yourself. And obviously this is a virtual event focused on well-being. So you've done, you've lived with the condition for decades. What did well-being look like to you when you were young, and your health and how you looked after yourself with type 1 in that those early years, as you probably became more aware of what you were living with, maybe as a child and into those teenage years?
Well, I mean, certainly I had lots and lots of hypos. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of hypos in my life, thousands probably, because you just didn't know. It was all done by observation, really, because you couldn't rely on the urine test. But I was blessed. I think I was put under the care of the world famous R.D. Lawrence, who set up King's College Hospital diabetes department. He almost died from type 1. And he had such a positive attitude. He said, you know, you're going to have a great life. You don't let it get in the way. Don't let it spoil things. You can still have a wonderful life. And he almost died from type 1, as I say, and he lived till nearly 70. And things have got much better since then. So that, and I think my parents had a very positive attitude, and that helps me. And I look at a little vial of insulin. I'm meant to have one here. Little vial of insulin. And I think I'm so grateful for that. I feel that makes me feel positive. Let's get out and make the most of life. Obviously, I have very low times. When you look at the blood sugars and they've been way off, even on a hybrid loop, I have good weeks. I have bad weeks as well. And it's, you know, you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and try not to get too pulled down by the low times that you have. Try and think positively. That's, I think, my big message.
Yeah, I can concur with that. And from my experiences living with the condition, and with those tough times and the challenges that our condition poses us, Pete, did you find a particular time in your life more difficult than any other time? And you know, why was it tougher? And what sort of things did you go through? And how did you, overcome them or manage them to sort of come out the other side or improve things?
I think probably the toughest time that I found was through puberty, going to uni, being determined to live as normal a life as possible. And really, I don't like to admit this, and I don't encourage anyone else to do this, but I rather ignored my type 1. I always injected insulin. I didn't test very regularly because it was a waste of time doing it, really, with urine testing. And I forgot to mention it. I was urine testing for 35 years before going on to blood testing. It's a long, long time. But that was probably the toughest time. And I suppose I really started to focus more when I had a family, and I had 2 sons, and I thought, my goodness, I've got to look after myself. And I've been involved in lots of challenges that have made me very focused as well. So that's helped me, but I've not, it's not been a bed of roses. I've had rough times as well, but I would say puberty, starting my first job, when you're out a lot doing things, that kind of time was really quite tough. I didn't focus as much as I should, but I've got away with it. I've been lucky.
I think there's, luck with type 1, Pete. I don't know if we could call it luck. I think you must have done some really positive things around your well-being to maintain the life that you have now after the amount of time that's lapsed with the condition. So yeah, I would steer away from the luck and actually give yourself some incredible amount of credit for where you are and what you've been able to do in your life. So yeah, you mentioned there about finding it hard when you were young. We obviously, as a charity, have supported and continue to support so many parents supporting children and young people with type 1 diabetes. What would your message or sort of connection to them be? What would you say to them to maybe supporting a young person with the condition?
Well, I think a positive attitude is probably the most powerful thing that has kept me going. A kind of a determination. I'm not going to let this ruin my life. I'm not going to let it run my life. It's going to become part of my life. It's always going to be part of my life, obviously, but you know, it's not going to detract from my life. And I think I can look back on my life, and you know, I've got 3 gorgeous granddaughters, and thankfully the type 1 hasn't been passed on to them or my sons. And I have a lot of positives in my life, and that's what I've tried to focus on. You know, it's an absolute new pain when you have to change the cannula, and you know what happens last thing at night, and you go into bed and your blood sugar's either low or very high. It's the sort of thing that you can get really irritated by. But I think one has to try and focus on, well, the good things in life and what it's enabling me to do. And the very fact I'm still here, you know, had I been born 30 years earlier, I wouldn't be here now, you know. I think I'm very lucky. I think we all are in lots of ways, but it obviously doesn't feel like that all the time. I don't know whether that's answered your question fully, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer. I think what you've really summarised well there, Pete, is the positive nature surrounding the condition, which kind of rubs off then on approach to life, I think, is what you're sort of suggesting there. And the way you frame it and the way you talk about it can really help in how you feel about it. And I think I can see that, and I certainly see that when I speak to you, Pete. I get that every time that we have a conversation. So yeah, thank you again for bringing that point out. It is really, really important and great to hear from somebody like you that's, you know, been through so much and seen so much with type 1. And it's something that I wanted to touch on as well was with all of the things you've seen with type 1 diabetes and all of the changes of technology and medication and conditions, how do you feel it's helping or challenging us with type 1 diabetes, specifically around our mental health?
Right. Well, I did mention earlier that we lived in blissful ignorance when we were urine testing and all this. We just did our best and tried to look after ourselves. Is technology, the wonderful technology we have now, is it always wonderful? Well, largely, yes. My goodness. It's just fabulous being able to press a button and see what your blood sugar is, and being able to give yourself tiny quantities of insulin that it just wasn't possible in the past. So doing that kind of thing is fantastic. But I think it does have its negative sides as well. It can have. And that's if people become too focused on absolute perfection. Someone said to me not so long ago, a straight line, blood sugar line, is when you're dead. That's the only time you get a straight blood sugar level. And you know, you look at a normal non-diabetic person and their blood sugar is constantly going up and down. And I think we sometimes set restrictions that are too tight. I don't get phased, for example, if I hit the odd 15 millimoles just occasionally, because as long as I'm not up there all the time, I don't mind that. The things I do try to avoid are the low blood sugars, which, you know, obviously is a big danger area. But I would encourage people not to become too fixed on absolute perfection, but to try and put the priorities of having an enjoyable and a meaningful life and, you know, feeling satisfied by your life is so important. And being too focused on perfection of blood sugars is not always beneficial, I think, anyway. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Peter, I think really valuable opinion to have, and I certainly can. Again, I can hear so much of what you've said to me in the past, and also how I kind of link it in with the world that I operate in as well. So yeah, great thought there on perfectionism and numbers and how technologies are impacting the type 1 community in a positive way, and sometimes in a challenging way too. What do you think then, Pete, has been some of the most useful things people have maybe said or helped you out with whilst managing your type 1 over the years? What do you think? You've had some great advice, and you've met some unbelievable people through the type 1 community and the healthcare profession. What sort of things have you heard along the years that have been really helpful to you or useful?
Well, the first long distance hike I ever did, Professor Stephanie O'Meal at King's College, a wonderful lady. I told her I was doing this long distance hike, 105 miles, and she said, right, every evening I was on MDI, cut your background insulin in half. And I couldn't believe it, as much as that. And I tried it, and she was absolutely spot on. It helped me so much, that kind of thing. But I think probably going back even earlier, I keep going on about positive. The positives I got from R.D. Lawrence, my first consultant, saying, you can have a great life, and my parents passing that message on, because I was obviously so young. But that's probably the most powerful thing that anyone has ever said to me, and it's had the greatest impact on my life. That's what I feel. Yeah.
So do you think, Pete, then some of the ways that people interacted with you, maybe whether that was family or whether that was the healthcare profession around your type 1, and the approach that they took, whether that was, obviously it sounds hugely positive, do you think that's influenced how you've been able to manage your own well-being and your mental health with the condition? Do you think it's been massively important?
Oh, most definitely, yes. I mean, I think with very young children, for example, a positive and a can-do anything attitude to a youngster with type 1 is so important. I think it's really a powerful thing to do, and it sets them up well for later life. That's how I feel about it, anyway. Certainly what happened to me.
Yeah. And in that then as well, Pete, what do you think you would say to healthcare professionals who are able to shape so much about people's initial introduction to type 1 diabetes and then maybe how they think and feel about the condition in those really important early stages of diagnosis? What do you think is an important thing to say or contribute from those healthcare professionals at that point?
Well, if I just mention briefly about what it used to be like, I met a woman who'd had type 1 more or less. She's still fit and well, had it the same length of time as myself, and she was quite upset because she was told she should never have children, and she was told that she should never hold a job of responsibility. She wanted to be an air hostess, and she felt really quite bitter about that, I think, understandably. Thankfully, I never had that kind of message. And I would always encourage healthcare professionals to say, you can do anything. I mean, my dad used to say you can do anything apart from fly a plane, and you can even do that now with type 1 if you're well managed. So, the possibilities of a fabulous life are definitely there, and care to make sure that complications don't result, if at all possible. Obviously, it's very, very, very important as well.
Absolutely. You talked about the possibilities there, Pete, and what you can do in life with type 1. I'd love to hear some stories of what you've been up to over the years and the things that you've achieved or you're most proud of doing despite living with type 1. I know of a number of those achievements, but I think we'd love to hear them, and I would love to hear about them.
Well, I think probably the thing I feel happiest about is being able to do this kind of thing and send out a positive message to people. That's the most, it gives me enormous satisfaction being able to send out a positive message. Of the things I've done, I was delighted to be invited by JDRF to climb Kilimanjaro when I was 60 in 2014. and that changed my life enormously, because I found this wonderful community, and that is something that I should also say is so beneficial and so powerful. Before social media, we used to just have the Balance magazine and your consultant. That was the only contact you had. It was very rare you knew anyone else with type 1 diabetes in their lives. So the benefits of having this contact is just wonderful. I always say to people to get involved in meeting people, go to meetups and things. And I've set up one with a friend in Surrey, for example, where I live, where we meet up in a pub or we go for a picnic in the park. And it's just lovely to sit and chat with people who fully understand. And that's something that someone without type 1 can never really understand in the same way. So I think that kind of thing can be very beneficial at any age, even at my age. I come back feeling as I've had fantastic therapy after going to those events. But yeah, so I did that. I celebrated my 60th year of living with type 1 by doing part of the highest altitude, highest treks in Peru. And I've got another one coming up in October. I'm proposing to, and I'll be looking for, it's about to go public. I'll be looking for other people with type 1 who'd like to climb Mount Toubkal, the highest peak in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. So keep your eyes open if you're interested, and JDRF and Diabetes UK are supporting me with that. I'm raising money for both. So there we are. It's now public.
It's definitely now public, Pete, and yeah. We'll look forward to seeing the developments around this, and yeah, amazing to hopefully get yourself up that peak, and
I hope
with
so.
many others with type 1 as well. It'd be amazing to see that. And
I should perhaps also say something that I was quite amazed. I was very keen on cars and motorsport, and in my 20s I used to rally cars, and that was when you didn't have a CGM or even a blood test meter. That was urine testing only. So I was relying on observing my symptoms, but I got away with it, and we rallied quite successfully, and a lot of fun, but run out of money rather quickly.
Yeah, and again, I didn't know that, Pete, either. I didn't know you used to rally cars when you're in your 20s. So I hear something new from your story every time I have a conversation with you. So amazing. And for other people, I think also really inspiring to hear that you were rallying cars around whilst assessing your blood glucose levels with urine testing, which is
sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Which is some achievement to do that and to do it well. So it really does help to demonstrate where we are now with technology and what that technology can hopefully give us in the future for so many young people growing up, as well as those that have had it for many years as well. What it gives us in terms of what we can achieve, but also the quality of life that we can have as well. So yeah, hopefully really positive messages for our community. And lastly, Pete, before we let you go, I'd really love to hear any of your thoughts and tips for our community. Anything you would really be keen that our community did or thought would be beneficial for their well-being, their mental health, whilst living with type 1. You've had 67 years of experience of the condition. What would you say are your sort of key messages that you'd pass on?
Right. Well, I would say, first of all, try and develop that and maintain that positive attitude as much as you can. As I said earlier, I think it's the most powerful thing that we have. I would say that. I would also say get out and meet other people with type 1. Get to know, get active on social media with the wonderful groups that are there. You can always, if you've got a concern or a worry or you're feeling low, you can go onto those things and into those groups, and they can be really very, very helpful. I would certainly do that. Get involved. Come and climb the mountain. Set up some challenges yourself to help other people. They don't have to be major things. and raise money for charities. That's a very, I get a lot of satisfaction out of raising money. Always want to raise more, but it's very satisfying to do my bit, I suppose. That's what I'd say. But positive attitude as much as you possibly can. That's number one in my book.
Yeah, and I think everything you've spoken about today, Pete, demonstrates that positive attitude and outlook, and how that's transpired into the life that you've lived with the condition, and the 67 years that there's been so much put in front of you, so many different challenges, so many different ways of managing the condition, and you've come out smashing it throughout those challenges. You've been there and you've done it, and you're here now telling a really positive story for so many of us. So I just wanted to say, a massive thank you on behalf of myself individually for all the support you give our community and for what you do in giving back. A massive thank you from the community, obviously watching today, that are here, but also a huge thank you from JDRF as a charity for all the work and support you've provided us today and in all of your fundraising efforts over the years. So yeah, thank you, Pete, for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it, and a pleasure as always. And we can't wait to see you climbing that next peak.
Okay. Well, can I just say an enormous thank you? The work you guys do is just incredible, absolutely fantastic, and it's lovely to support you. And it's a great honour to be invited to come and talk to you today. So thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Chris and Pete, for that incredible and insightful and heartwarming discussion. And thank you, Pete, for your positivity, advocacy and dedication to raising awareness for type 1. So we are now going to hear from another lived experience speaker who will be discussing her journey with mental health and type 1. Thank you so much for being here, Temi. Over to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Temi and I am a type 1 diabetic and also a doctor. Today I'm going to be speaking about my life with type 1 diabetes as well as my journey with mental health. So a bit about me. I have been a type 1 diabetic for just under 12 years now. And in that time, I have been on multiple MDIs, so multiple daily injections. And I'm now currently on my second pump, which you can see here in the photo. And I've also been using a CGM for 4 years now. I work as an aesthetic doctor after deciding to leave the NHS last year. And I've also been creating diabetes content online for about 4 years now. So on Instagram and TikTok, I share relatable and educational content about living with diabetes. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, but I'll speak more about that later and how it's actually helped my mental health. So my diagnosis story. So when I was 17, I started to lose a lot of weight. I was thirsty all of the time and I was needing to pass more urine more frequently in the day and especially at night. And my mum had suggested to me that I go to see the GP after noticing my weight loss. However, I was someone who had been overweight as a child, and I was kind of glad to lose the weight. So I ignored my mum's suggestion and continued going about my life. One day when I was on my way to school on the train, I remember it was a Friday and I felt really faint, as I had been feeling for the past month, but this day was particularly bad. Fortunately, a passenger on the train happened to be a nurse, and she looked at me and asked me, like, "Are you okay? You don't look well at all." And I, replied, "I don't feel well." It was a packed, typical London train, really packed. So we got off at the next stop. She sat me down and they called the paramedics. So when the paramedics came, they eventually tested my blood glucose levels, which were well over 20, and they started to speak over my head, stating that I must be diabetic, which is not the best way to break life-changing news. And as a clinician, we're taught often about how to break bad news, and I always knew that that was a perfect example of the worst way to do it, and it's something that stuck with me. So I was taken to the hospital. I was given all the informational leaflets, instructed on how to inject, and I was sent home. My mum then went out to buy all of the healthy, sort of diabetic friendly meals. And for the rest of the day, I sat in front of the TV watching the latest episode of Glee in disbelief. And that disbelief didn't go away for many, many years. So then I went on to university about a year into my diagnosis. So from 2013 to 2019, I went to study medicine. And whilst I had a great university experience, as you can see, here's a photo of me playing netball, I wasn't coping very well behind closed doors. I really struggled with my mental health, and I was pretending diabetes wasn't something that affected me that much at all. I used to drink as much as everyone else, and I was also dealing with unhealthy eating habits that I did have before the diagnosis, but it became much worse now that I was living independently and constantly focusing on what I was eating because I was diabetic. The one saving grace I had was that I was actually switched onto a pump halfway through my university career. And so I was able to conveniently bolus for snacks, and also always have a basal insulin running, even if I was hungover or busy, because I would often forget to do these things because I was so involved in university life and extracurricular activities. So then we move into 2019. So I started to work as a junior doctor, graduated university and moved out into London. And this was great for the first few months until the COVID lockdown hit. So due to the pandemic, I moved back home with my family, and I finally had the time to sort of focus on my own health in a way that I hadn't done in the 7 years prior. And my mum had also encouraged me to go online and find a sort of source of encouragement, because when I was at university, I had found a blog by a lovely lady called Alex called I Run on Insulin, and I would read her blog. She was a diabetic who loved to run, and it was the first time that I had ever heard firsthand from someone with diabetes, and seeing that she was able to do the things that she loved, such as running, which to me, you know, playing netball, I would have hypos all the time. It felt like it wasn't something that was very attainable. And so she was a really good source of encouragement for me. However, about a year into me reading her blog, she found out she was pregnant, and obviously her focus shifted, and so she stopped running the blog. So I agreed it was a good idea for me to go back online and find someone else who could sort of give me that encouragement. And I ended up on YouTube and Instagram for hours and hours, discovering all of the people who had diabetes and were actually proud and not ashamed of their condition, which I think was very interesting for me, because I had definitely had some deep-rooted shame when it came to diabetes, that I think I'm still unlearning to this day. And it's through looking at those people and seeing how confident they were about their condition that I decided to set up my page and connect with people like myself. So I think that this was really the starting point for me taking control of my mental health. However, I was still struggling with my eating habits, and work was not at all what I thought it would be like. And obviously, you know, it's great to connect with people, but diabetes is still diabetes. So I decided it was time for me to start therapy. And so, as I said, I think a culmination of all of these things is really what started me on my journey to take control of both my physical and my mental health. So that's the sort of journey of me dealing with my sort of journey in diabetes, but also my journey with mental health. And so here are a few tips and tricks that I would give any person, especially what I would say to myself when I was first diagnosed. The first, and I think most important one, is to get connected with other diabetics. Through using social media, I've ended up making true lifelong friends who have diabetes. We go to lunches, we go and hang out, and we talk about everything under the sun, diabetes and otherwise. And I think it's great because you learn that there is no thought that you've ever had that another diabetic hasn't had. During the lockdown, I created a group on Clubhouse for type 1 diabetics. And one day we were all on there just talking about diabetes in general. And someone mentioned that they always thought, everyone always wonders, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? But their thought was, how do I get insulin and how do I store it? And I was shocked, because I'd always had this thought about, if we ended up in a zombie apocalypse, or if I was in the Hunger Games, how would I survive? I would need insulin. And that always felt like a very individual thought that I had, that I couldn't express to my family, that wouldn't make sense to my friends. And suddenly I had so many people agreeing with me and telling me that they had the same thought. So even little things like that make a really big difference to your life. So if you aren't already a part of the diabetes online community, and honestly, I don't think that there's an app out there that there isn't a community on, I would say get involved. I would also recommend NHS talking therapies. There are specific ones to chronic conditions, and I'm in private therapy, like my own therapy, but I started off in NHS talking therapies. One, because it's free, which means that everyone can have access to it, and two, because you have a chronic condition, there are specific ones for you. So I would suggest that. The sort of one that I went on was like a 6-week session, because it's not indefinite, as the NHS does have limited resources. However, I think it was a great gateway into therapy for me, and it pushed me to want to continue therapy. I think that the condition of diabetes can affect every single aspect of your life, and why not find someone to talk to about it, someone who is impartial and is trained to help you with these issues. And lastly, I want to talk about experiencing burnout. So burnout is something I've experienced a few times in my life, both while I was at university and whilst I've been on this journey out of university. I think that the reason for them was different in each time, but just as important. When I was at university, not taking very good care of myself, I think the burnout came from my physical health not being good because I wasn't paying attention to it. And I think that the burnout happened post-COVID for me because I was focusing too much on my diabetes, trying to get it super perfect, trying to make sure I never had a hypo, I never went high. And I think that we as diabetics can put so much pressure on ourselves. It's a 24/7 condition. We're full-time diabetics. We get no pay, we get no annual leave. And really we get no thanks. It's difficult. And I think that sometimes pressure can be external and internal. But if you are experiencing burnout, I would suggest that you find a way to take a break from it. So whether it's that you're paying too much attention to your sugar levels, everything being perfect, you want your HbA1c to be the best it's ever been, it can be counterproductive at times. And I found that reducing the number of times I check my CGM in a day, my blood glucose levels in a day, helps me when I'm experiencing burnout, or setting really small goals that aren't too overwhelming. So saying that I want to try and only have I want to try and reduce the number of nighttime hypos I'm having this week and focus solely on that. Whatever's happening in the day is happening in the day. But if I focus on making sure I go to bed with a blood glucose level of X to prevent me going low, then that's a little goal that I can be proud of and really take stock in the fact that it's a difficult job that we all do, and we all do it so well. Like, you do it so well. So we have to be easy on ourselves. So my sort of take-home messages would be, diabetes is not linear. And I want to make sure that when I have told my story, even though I've sort of picked out the highlights in that I was struggling very much so in the beginning and I'm improving day by day, but that doesn't mean that in these past 3 years, I haven't had seriously low points or struggled. It's an ongoing journey. Overall, I feel that the trend is upwards, but it's not linear, and it has its highs and lows, which I love the highs and lows pun when it comes to diabetes. But not only are our sugar levels high and low, we will have high and low moments. It's life. Nothing in this world can be perfect, and you certainly can't be perfect when you're trying to be an entire organ to yourself. So, you should be really proud. We should all be really proud of what we're doing. Being a part of a community is always better than being alone. I found that finding the community has really just filled me with so much joy. I didn't realize that I needed people with diabetes around me. And I think that personally also being diagnosed at 17 meant that I was too old to be with the kids groups at hospital, but I wasn't old enough or mature enough yet to really be in an adult group. And so being able to go on social media and find people exactly my age diagnosed at the same time as me, earlier, later, have the same interests and hobbies as me so that we can bond not just about our diabetes, but outside of it, has been amazing. And I'd say it's been the most impactful, best thing about joining the online diabetes community. And lastly, our mental and physical health are linked. So when we talk about diabetes and mental health, many times we're talking about the same thing. People with type 1 diabetes are at increased risk of mental health issues from things like anxiety, depression, and also eating disorders. I know that personally I've experienced a form of all three. And I think that it's very important to know that you can't take care of one without taking care of the other. I know that I felt the best in myself when I was looking after both parts. If I'm only focused on one, the other tends to suffer anyway. So it's kind of all in one, it's all encompassed, and it's important that we remember that our mental health is just as important as our physical health and take care of both. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be around later if you have any questions. So yeah, thank you.
Apologies. Thank you so much, Temi, for being so open and honest with us and providing us with practical guidance in managing well-being with type 1. If you'd like to get in touch with Temi, please do so through her Instagram, which we'll drop into the comments section, and she'll be more than happy to support with any questions you might have regarding her presentation. So in just a few minutes, we're going to have another 5-minute comfort break where you can have another go at the breathing exercise and check out our holding slides. But first, we're going to hear from Caroline from Insulet. So welcome, Caroline.
Thanks for that introduction, Sarah. So I'm Caroline from Insulet, makers of Omnipod, and I'll talk to you about the Omnipod 5 hybrid closed loop system. It links with the Dexcom G6 sensor, and it is a tubeless automated delivery system. So it receives information directly from the G6 sensor every 5 minutes, and it makes a decision whether to increase, decrease, or pause your insulin to protect from hypo and hyperglycemia. It's an on-body connection, so the pod and the sensor connect directly to each other, so you don't need the controller to be near you at all times, just when you want to deliver a bolus. You can wear the pod anywhere that you would sensibly inject insulin. That's great if you've got any absorption issues or you want to wear it a bit more discreetly. And it will provide continuous insulin for up to 3 days with no need for injections. Never see any needles, which is nice if you've got any concerns over injecting. It also links with Gluco via a cloud, so it will automatically upload the Dexcom and the Omnipod 5 information every hour throughout the day, which allows better connection with your healthcare team. You can download our simulator app so that you can get a feel for what it's like to use, and you can also order a pod experience kit. So if you use the simulator and the pod experience kit or a dummy pod, you can get a real feel for what it's like to wear. This is available on Android and Apple. You can also speak to one of our Omnipod specialists for a one-on-one chat. And we understand that choosing technology is a big decision, so there's a lot of support available for you. There's no 4-year tie-in. You can upgrade to newer or more suitable technology as it becomes available. And we'll just finish on a short video now.
Before we begin, make sure you're in a comfortable position. Look at the screen in front of you. See if you can breathe following the ball around the shape on the screen. Listen to the instructions to help you breathe around the shape. Start by taking a deep breath in through your nose and hold. And keeping your lips together, slowly try to push all of the air out of your mouth. If it helps, you can use your finger to follow the ball around the shape. Breathe in through your nose. Hold. And then breathe out. And relax. And again, breathe in through your nose. Hold. And breathe out. And relax. One more time. Breathe in through your nose. Hold your breath. And then breathe out. And relax. Breathe in through your nose. Hold. And then breathe out. And hold. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you managed to grab a quick refreshment there and are ready for the next session. So we're now going to be joined by Cher from Medtrum. Welcome, Cher.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for that introduction. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Cher, and I'm here to talk to you about Medtrum's Nano Touch Care system, where size really matters. Medtrum's Touch Care system is more than just a pump. It is an insulin pump and a CGM that can work together or independently. When together, you have the benefits of predictive low glucose suspend function, which can help protect against hypos, especially at night, giving you peace of mind. It is all set up for the hybrid closed loop system, which just has to be activated. Medtrum's Touch Care system can be controlled by a compatible smartphone, either Android or Apple. This gives greater peace of mind with no extra bits and pieces to carry. The nano patch pump is small and discreet. The white part is the pump, which we call the brains, and holds the basal data and is reusable. The grey part is the reservoir and is disposable, making it as environmentally friendly as possible. The reservoir holds 200 units of insulin and can be used for 3 days. And we also have the 300 unit one, which is ideal for heavy insulin users. The steel cannula reduces the risk of occlusions or blockages. It can be integrated into our CGM and is ready for the hybrid closed loop. It just has to be activated and is coming very soon. Our CGM is also small and discreet, as you can see. It has a 14-day wear time and guarantee for 10 days. It has a reusable transmitter and gives real-time readings every 2 minutes without the need of finger pricking or scanning. And this could be standalone or integrated into the patch pump. It is simple to use the bolus calculator with easy view patch, where you can be assured that the correct bolus is delivered every time. You can use the extended, combo or normal bolus, which will give the flexibility of giving insulin in a way that you want it. It is as discreet as sending a text. With the easy follow app, real-time data can be shared with family, healthcare professionals, and with no limit on the number of followers. The Personal Data Manager, PDM, is ideal for children or for those who don't want to carry a phone with them, and it uses the bolus calculator in just the same way as the Easy Patch app. Medtrum gives local support, and if we have a 24-hour technical helpline, school plans and videos, and we do e-learning. And please feel free to visit our website, where we can actually send you out a free demo pump so you can see how small it is. Please feel free to add any comments, because I'll be around now to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cher. We are now going to be joined by Katie for a short video from Ypsomed. If you have any questions for Katie, please drop them in the comments section. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Katie Gerard. I'm a clinical educator for Ypsomed. MyLife automates insulin delivery, also known as hybrid closed loop. This simple and easy to use system has 3 components. Firstly, the choice of 2 CGMs, either the Freestyle Libre 3 or the Dexcom G6. This glucose data is then sent to the second component of the system, which is the MyLife CAM APS FX app, housed in a smartphone. And this is also where the user would bolus for food, making it more discreet. The decision about insulin delivery is then sent to the third component, which is the MyLife Ypsopump. MyLife Loop is a highly adaptive and learning algorithm. It's based on over 15 years of clinical research. Its ability to adjust insulin throughout the day and night helps to prevent both high and low blood glucose levels. It has the following key benefits. It's been shown to increase time in range, decrease HbA1c, and also helps to improve quality of life and reduces diabetes distress levels. The recent NICE guidance state all children and young people under the age of 18, women who are pregnant or pregnancy planning, and adults with an HbA1c of above 58 millimoles per mole should have access to hybrid closed loop therapy. MyLife Loop is licensed from 1 year and over. As well as its clinical evidence showing increase in time in range, families also report less time managing their child's diabetes, less worry about their child's diabetes control, and less trouble sleeping whilst their child is on the system. For people who are pregnant or thinking about having children, CAN OPS FX is the only algorithm licensed for use in pregnancy, and the MyLife Loop system has been evidenced to significantly improve glucose levels throughout all stages of pregnancy. My Life Diabetes Care offers the full package. Excellent 24/7 customer support, a range of different pump starts and follow-up options available from both your local diabetes support specialist and our clinical education team. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Katie, for Ypsomed's continued support. So we're now going to move on to our next speaker, Dr. Marietta Stabler, who is here today to give us an update on the research going on at King's College London in the mental health space. Please note that there is some discussion of type 1 disordered eating throughout this presentation. Thank you so much for joining us. Marietta, over to you.
I'm an NIHR clinician scientist and clinical senior lecturer at King's College London and also diabetes consultant. And my specialist interest is in mental health research and type 1 diabetes. And I was asked to update you a little bit what we're up to at King's. So it's probably not necessary to repeat this, but it's really just as a reminder, we all know that living with type 1 diabetes is like walking a tightrope, or some of my patients have described as in riding a burning unicycle on a tightrope, because all of the things with going on in life, family, work, friends, hobbies, and then alongside that, having to balance the needs of diabetes self-care on that tightrope and being worried about falling off and having complications, hypos, and so on. And although people describe this, it's almost like a 20 to 30% part-time job, the main difference is there is no annual leave or weekends off. Even with the modern diabetes technologies, which are clearly supportive, that tightrope walking is not gonna change as much as we'd like it to. So we do believe that some of the mental health problems will remain going on, and there's something we need to do about this. So this is just a reminder that so we're talking about mental health, we're also talking about psychiatric comorbidity. It's not quite the same, it's sort of a spectrum, but we know that psychiatric comorbidity, as in having type 1 diabetes and a psychiatric illness such as depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, and eating disorders, these prevalences are unfortunately really increased. So it is not surprising that diabetes itself can drive diabetes-specific cognitions and thoughts and worries around fear of hypoglycemia, fear of diabetes complications, and fear of insulin weight gaining, just to name a few. So if we go to sort of milder level of mental health and diabetes problems, we call it diabetes distress. It's not quite meeting the diagnostic criteria for a psychiatric illness, but really significantly influences how people feel living with diabetes, and can be a driver for hypoglycemia, for example, for problematic hypoglycemia and problems with one's health. King's has got a huge tradition in doing type 1 diabetes mental health research. So you all know Professor Stephanie Emil, who's done the world-renowned research on hypoglycemia and mental health. Professor Khalida Ismail holds the only chair in the country and probably in the world on sort of psychiatry and diabetes, and leads a huge work group. And then there's Professor Johnny Treasure, who we're collaborating with in the topic of eating disorders. And altogether, there's been funding attracted to this, and award-winning integrated diabetes mental health services were developed, and so on and so forth. So King's is really at the forefront of things. Just to give you an example of an intervention that really came out of this and which is now being implemented in the NHS, this is HARP-DOC. That is a complex intervention for people with type 1 diabetes who experience problematic hypoglycemia. So that is recurrent severe hypoglycemia, so blood glucose dropping in a way that somebody else has to help you, and this not stopping in spite of accessing best care. And they have developed a psychoeducational intervention with really excellent outcomes, and this is now being implemented in the NHS. So we're not doing research for the sake of it. We're really always doing research with the idea of bringing that to the person living with diabetes as soon as we can, once we've got the evidence base. So just briefly, and you can read up these papers or email me afterwards if you want more information, but HARP-DOC works with a cognitive behavioral therapy approach in the combination of diabetes education, motivation, interviewing. These are all methods that come from psychotherapeutic approaches, but are delivered by people who really know a lot about diabetes, and these are diabetes educators. And we've seen in the large randomized control trial that we ran in several centres in the UK and one centre in America that HeartDoc did reduce severe hypoglycemia episodes and had added mental health benefit. What I'm going to talk a little bit more about today is type 1 diabetes and eating disorders, because this is really a complex problem when they occur together or make each other worse. And so far, there was no effective intervention out there until we started this work here at King's. Unfortunately, it's quite common, so it depends on how we define it. But the classical eating disorders are about twice as common in people with type 1 diabetes. But if we expand the definition to the more really diabetes-specific behaviors, such as taking a little less insulin, or trying to avoid eating at all to not drive the blood glucose up, and so on, it's quite depends on where you draw the line, but it is quite a common condition. So we are working on two interventions. One is targeting is intended to support people who are very severely ill with type 1 diabetes and disordered eating, and that is an NHS pilot project across London, hosted at KCH, that supports people in the out and inpatient setting with TIDE. So I'm using TIDE as an acronym now. Then the STEADY project is funded by NIHR, that's the research arm of NHS. This is a outpatient-based intervention with a lot of qualitative research to understand disordered eating and develop new models. And we're just in the middle of running the trial to test it out. And of course, this is team effort. It needs a multidisciplinary approach. We have clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, people with lived experience, diabetes nurse, CBT therapist, statistician. We've got so much experience working together on this. And first and foremost, we've also got people with lived experience helping us in the co-design of the study. And then this is the Pan-London TIDE Collaborative. Again, people with diabetes at the centre. The whole region of London is collaborating, and this service is led by Professor Khalida Ismail, and you see lots of pictures here, and I think that there would be many more I needed to put on here, but the slide wasn't big enough. So again, team effort. Coming back to STEADY, so that's a research project that went through several steps. So we've refined the theoretical model, as in what is type 1 diabetes and disordered eating really. We co-designed the intervention together with people with lived experience and health professionals of several specialties that are all involved in caring for people with TIDE. And then we developed an intervention toolkit that is combining behavior change elements with diabetes education, and the intervention is delivered by our diabetes specialist nurse, who's also a fully trained CBT therapist, under the supervision of the clinical psychologist, embedded in the MDT that includes my psychiatry colleague and myself as a diabetologist. And we are, unfortunately, I can't report the results today. We are currently inviting everybody in for their follow-up visits, so watch that space. One of the things that have come out, and I'm just using one snippet of the many publications that have come out of it, that there are many, many reasons for people with TIDEs to omit insulin. Lots of cognitions and behaviors associated with it that clinicians and also people with the condition weren't always aware of. For some, they say insulin equals fat. Others say insulin omission is only something I can do because I've got diabetes. Others can say as feeling it's almost like an addictive behavior. Others are skipping their boluses and saying, well, if I don't inject my insulin, the food doesn't count. And for some, it's really about control, this sort of being told you need to control your diabetes, and then in a sort of paradoxical way, having the cognition that the one thing I really can control is not taking my insulin. And then there's a lot of fear of restarting insulin or titrating it up again. So all of that, so we went to people with the lived experience and interviewed them and developed them a theoretical CBT model. We scoped the diabulimia blogs out there and did a systematic analysis. We asked the health professionals. We combined CGMS traces, as in looking at glucose up and downs, with diabetes diaries to understand how these two play together. So you can read them all up. They're all in the public domain, and do drop me an email if you want to have the papers to it. So to the TIDE service, so that's the NHS England funded pilot service for severe TIDE. So this spider-like thingy here is the hub and spoke model, means that King's College Hospital sits at the centre together with the South London and Maudsley Eating Disorder Unit. And then for each region in London, there is a spoke for with the respective hospitals that we're referring in. So again, a multidisciplinary approach. And we've had really fantastic outcomes here in terms of biomedical improvement, as in HbA1c coming down, fewer admissions in diabetic ketoacidosis, and we are in our 4th year of funding and are really crossing our fingers and toes that we get a continued funding, which is not given in the current environment. And NHS England has used this model as a blueprint for 5 more pilot services across England. The key clinical process here is really, again, bringing it all together, having diabetes-focused psychotherapists, having joint diabetes and psychiatric assessment, and really having sort of intensive monitoring, review of treatment goals, and sort of a rapid cycle feedback. Other work that has come out, and I said we don't do research for the sake of it, we really try and change policy, we try and change care in the NHS. And one of the things that have come out is a new guidance on type 1 diabetes and disordered eating, in collaboration with the team in Bournemouth in Wessex, who have done fantastic work with their pilot, and Dr. Simon Chapman, who's been really strong in driving this matter in the pediatric and young people arena. So we're quite proud there's the first guideline here nationally, and you know, guideline is a guideline, then it's about implementing, and that's a different story, but it's a start. So I get asked again and again, we will be out of our jobs now that people get artificial pancreas, and we all know it's fantastic, and it's something we've really been waiting for a long time, and it's a real breakthrough in type 1 diabetes medicine. However, increasingly we see that people feel very much under pressure that now they have the artificial pancreas, everybody expects them, well, they themselves expect them for everything to be perfect and it all being well and basically problem sorted. And we know it isn't. So I have done sort of, because there's no clear research out there, because it's such a fast evolving field, I put a tweet out there, and I needed some material for a talk I was giving back in Austria, and asked people, you know, does it solve all problems now? Does it? And I think I've picked out this one because I think that really nails it. As in, it says, you know, the technology is fantastic. It's like driving a Tesla instead of a Fiat Panda. You've got so many safety systems, but you still have to do the driving yourself, just like in a Fiat Panda. That really puts into a nutshell. And there are some interesting reviews talking about you know, explicitly looking for these burdens that can come with diabetes devices. And they have scoped the literature on CGMS, so that's glucose sensors, on insulin pumps, and on artificial pancreas systems. And they have picked up some signs of emotional burden, the perception of negative social consequences, and practical and technical problems that persist. And it's not surprising because you deal with a lot of information overload. There's a constant interaction with the technology, sometimes planned, but sometimes not really planned, that will interrupt other activities. And alarms are also a double-edged sword. They can keep you safe and give you that alarm before you dip into a good-going hypo. But some people, if you hear the alarms all the time, can perceive this as a feeling of failure when not in target, frustration and panic. So I think these are all things we need to think about when we in our approach of embracing these new technologies. And some people have said that they felt, you know, it makes diabetes more visible, and some people feel ambivalent about that, or that others can hear the alarms, or you can share your data with the diabetes team, or even your partner or the parents, and that can be a bit of a potential conflict. So to summarize, there are I think this pyramid that's a Diabetes UK model, but it is basically saying mental health and psychological needs, they can come at different degrees of severity. Here they called it levels. And we really need tailored interventions for each of these levels and pathways. And we will continue to need this, even if we've got fantastic new technologies in the real world now. So I don't think we will be out of our jobs, and we will continue to do our work. And we really like to invite people who lived experience to support us in all forms, as in joining our patient advisory groups or take part in research, advisors on research. So yeah, I will hopefully will continue the conversations with JDRF and other diabetes charities, because without people living with diabetes giving us the guidance as in what do we need to look at, what are the needs, helping us advise, we cannot do effective research. So thank you very much for inviting me today, and thank you for listening. And of course, a big thank you to all the people around me who I'm representing today, who are supporting this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marietta, for that brilliant insight into the research being done at the moment. So we're now going to be joined again by DigiBeat, and we've got Rob here to tell us a little bit more about a brand new DigiBeat resource. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Rob from DigiBeat, and I hope you're enjoying the event so far. A big thanks to JDRF for inviting us along today to share the important work that we're all doing together. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to a new animation that we've been working on, and we're really excited to be premiering it for you today. It's called How to Hold a Hedgehog, and it's been written by the amazing Rose Stewart and illustrated by the fantastic Richard Dyer. And it's all about a girl called Anisha, a young girl called Anisha, and how she manages her diabetes creature, which in her case is Sid, the diabetes hedgehog. And you'll get to meet him soon, and he's quite spiky and prickly sometimes. And this is one of the many new resources in the Coping with Diabetes platform that Maddie demonstrated for you earlier. So thanks again to JDRF for inviting us along, and enjoy.
How to hold a hedgehog. This is me. I'm Anisha. I'm 8 3/4. I go to Riverside Primary School. My teacher is Miss Crowley. I love playing football, drawing and playing the ukulele. This is my family. I live with Mum, Dad and my 2 little brothers. And this is Sid, the diabetes hedgehog. Sid arrived last year when I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. At first, I tried to get along with Sid, but looking after him felt like a really big job, and he didn't make it easy. He was bristly at bedtime, spiky on school trips, and prickly at the playoffs. Sid kept getting in the way of all the stuff I enjoyed. I couldn't stop worrying about what he'd do next. The more I worried, the spikier Sid became.
What if my alarm goes off? What if we forget something? What if we go hypo? What if we do it wrong? What if I go low in football? What if people think I'm weird?
Everyone tried to help, but even Dad's hugs couldn't fix this one.
Sid, you're getting too spiky.
One day, after a particularly prickly morning with Sid, I had had enough. It was time to take Sid to see my diabetes team. But how do you hold a hedgehog? We went to see my diabetes team. We talked a lot and made some plans about my food and my insulin. And then Susie came to talk to me.
Hello, Anisha.
She's a feelings doctor. It was tricky to talk about my feelings in the spikyology sessions in the beginning, but Susie said that was okay, and we could draw about it instead. We worked out that Sid and I were stuck in a spiky cycle. I get worried, Sid gets spiky, I get scared, Sid gets spikier. Susie taught me and Sid to relax, so that my worries wouldn't make me feel so wobbly and Sid wouldn't get so spiky all the time. We made a big list of stuff that would help us together in tricky times. Sid and Anisha's prickle protectors, calm breathing, play my music, talk to Mum and Dad, draw my feelings, relax my body. I realised that maybe Sid wasn't such a pain after all. Maybe he was just feeling scared. Just like me, I needed a friend to tell him it would be okay. Maybe I could be that friend. Over the year, Sid and I did loads of stuff together. My diabetes team introduced Sid and I to lots of new friends. We even had a diversity party. We did it! Things feel loads better since me and Sid learned to be friends. Sometimes he can still get prickly, but that's okay, because I know we can handle this together.
Thank you so much, Rob, for giving us the exclusive first look at the wonderful How to Manage a Hedgehog video. So we are now coming to our final segment of today's event. So in a moment, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Chris, and several special guests for our lived experience panel. So now we've got everyone up on screen. Please note that if you have any questions for the panelists, you can pop them in the comments section and we will do our best to answer these live. So thank you all for being here today. I'm very, very excited for this discussion. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Sarah, and a big welcome to all of our panelists today, coming to us with a variety of different experiences of living and coping with type 1 diabetes, and hopefully it's going to provide some really useful insight to everybody watching. So as Sarah's already said, if you've got questions that you want to pose the panel, we're hoping to get into a few of those throughout this section. So please do drop them into the comments. And just to get onto some introductions then, as we've already heard from Temi and Tom today, we're going to skip over them. So thank you guys for your earlier introductions and your great sessions. So we're going to jump straight over to Emma first to introduce yourself. And if you could, Emma, and I'm going to come around to everybody else afterwards, just touch on your connection to type 1 diabetes and what you get up to on a daily basis whilst coping with the condition, as in a brief introduction. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Chris. And yeah, thank you, JDRF, for having this session and for having us all joining you today. So I'm Emma. I've lived with type 1 for nearly 30 years now, 30 years this year. I am on a t:slim and Dexcom hybrid closed loop, which has made an incredible difference to my life. And I'm based up in Scotland. And day to day, I have 2 children who keep me very busy. And I also work a lot in patient and public involvement. So I'm really passionate about people's lived experience getting involved in healthcare and research and everything else.
Thanks, Emma. Jimmy, do you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jim or Jimmy. I've had type 1 for 22 years. So I was diagnosed age 2. I've had it pretty much all my life, and it's definitely got sort of no easier. You know, truth be told, I really struggle with it. You know, I think as that animation showed, it is a part of me, but it's a part of me that, you know, I'm still really trying to look after. And I think, yeah, growing up with it in childhood, into more like teenager, and then into kind of university and now my adult life, they've all kind of had their own challenges. So, you know, it's tough, but I'm learning every day still.
Thanks, Jimmy. Claire, you want to go next?
Hi, everybody. So I'm Claire. My son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in April last year when he was just 8. He's now 9. So I'm coming at it from a slightly different perspective to some of the other people on the panel. But for me, it's about how I can support his well-being and also that of his siblings. He's got 2 sisters as well, because diabetes has such a huge impact on the whole family, really. So it's just looking for really helping him to have the tools that he needs to cope with this emotionally on a day-to-day basis, because sometimes when you're 9, you'd rather think about something else. And so it's helping him to see that, yes, it's important, but it's not the only thing in his life.
Thank you, Claire. Nicole, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, I'm Nicole. I am a type 1 diabetic now for 15 years. I just celebrated my 15 years 2 days ago. I'm originally from South Africa, and I am currently on the Omnipod Dash and the Dexcom G6. I am the head of email and CRM for a cruise and ski holiday agency, and I work from home most of the time. So most of the day, I'm just sat in front of my screen. So to make sure that I stay insulin sensitive, I make sure to take regular breaks, whether it's putting on a load of laundry, going to the shops, exercising, or taking my dogs for a walk.
Thanks, Nicole. And last but not least, Ruby, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name's Ruby. I'm from South Wales, and I've had type 1 diabetes for 13 years, so since I was little. Yeah, and I'm on the Freestyle Libre 2, and I'm also trialing out Bionics, which is a new CGM, which is really, really good. Yeah.
Thanks, Ruby. So I'm going to pose you a few questions across the panel to begin with, and hopefully we'll have a few coming in from the audience as well. So the first question that I'm going to pose you is, how do you think type 1 diabetes impacts your well-being or your mental health? So I'm going to come to somebody that hasn't spoken yet. So I'm going to come to Temi first. So Temi, I know you've touched on it previously in your speech, but what do you think to that question?
I think, first of all, hi, Chris. I think that diabetes has greatly impacted my mental well-being. At this point, I'm not really sure that I can really separate them anymore. I feel that no matter what state that I'm in mentally, I still always have to think about my diabetes. So from that aspect, it's difficult because I can't have, say, a week. I want to feel down for a week. I just want to wallow and just, something's gone wrong in a different area of my life, in work, in my personal life. I don't get that opportunity to just say, I'm just going to lay in bed all day, not think about anything. Because the moment I do, there's a hypo because I didn't eat, or my sugars are through the roof. So even if we take away the actual, how difficult it is dealing with diabetes itself, you also can't deal with your other things without diabetes popping up and saying, not so fast. You still have to take care of me. I'm still here. So I think that because they go hand in hand, it affects it quite a lot. So that's what I'd say.
Thanks, Temi. And I was going to ask for a slightly different perspective. And Claire, if I can come to you as a parent, what do you think to that question?
I guess it's thinking about how it affects my son's mental well-being, but also our mental well-being as parents. So I know for him, I can see when he's feeling really sad and angry and frustrated. And then I then feel sad, angry and frustrated because I'm trying to guide him through a difficult situation. And I know the presentation earlier from DigiBeat really resonated with me as a parent, like looking at things, the different areas they had. Why me? I feel angry. And I can totally see all of that coming out in him as a child. So I think for us, we're still relatively new on this journey, but it's been about trying to find a support network of people that I can offload on if I need to, but also that I can turn to if it is just all getting a bit much. And I think there's a sort of perception that the bad thing about diabetes is that you have to inject. But actually, for me, I find, yes, that is not very nice having to inject my son because he doesn't really want to do it himself. But actually, it's the fact that I wake up in the morning and think, oh, I've got to carb count this and I've got to get this, and feeling a sense of responsibility that I've got to get it right for him because he can't do it himself yet. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on and I feel like I'm waffling now, but it's certainly being aware of his mental well-being, but also the impact that it has on us as well.
Yeah, and great point there, Claire, around the impact that it has on you and the difference that has between you and your your child with type 1. It's both, but at different all at the same time. So, and I wanted to ask Emma this same question as well. Emma, you're living with type 1, but you are also obviously very busy with work as a mother as well. How does this this question play into your experiences?
Yeah, I think there's probably two words that I would use to sum up diabetes, and those are relentless and overwhelming. And I think often that feeling of just, I have to take control of this diabetes. I have to think about it and I have to manage it. But I also have a life going on in the background, and trying to find that balance is something that I have really struggled with, particularly as a teenager and in my early 20s, trying to find that balance of living a normal life as much as possible, but also trying to manage my diabetes in the best way. And certainly now, being a mum, any mums know that your kids come first. And so sometimes I have to really make myself say, no, I need to treat this hypo, or I need to have something to eat, or we need to wait a little bit to do that activity because my bloods are running high, and actually trying to make sure that I put myself first in sometimes is really hard. And I think you then feel that guilt that comes in with diabetes as well, that I haven't done the best thing today, or I've not managed in the best way. And that all then ties into that feeling of relentlessly trying to kind of manage this and cope with this every day.
Yeah, no, an awful lot of different things to manage and look at and cope with, alongside what is, in your words, Emma, relentless. And I can completely concur with that in terms of this condition. Nicole, what are your views on how it's impacted you?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm just going to reiterate what everyone else is saying, is that it's constantly on my mind 24/7, 365. There is no break, no holiday, no off switch. Even if you turn off your Dexcom alerts, it's still there in the back of your mind. I'm thinking about my blood sugars. What am I going to eat? How active am I? Am I going to be very sedentary, or is it going to be an active day? And I think also for us ladies, what adds another layer of complexity is, where are you in your cycle? How insulin sensitive are you, or how insulin resistant are you? So it can all be very overwhelming. Most of the time it is. And for me personally, that previously in the earlier years led to a lot of anxiety and depression for me, which I struggled with a lot. But yeah, I don't think anyone can quite understand what it's like to be a type 1 diabetic until you live a day inside our heads, which is absolute chaos at times. But I do think that learning your patterns, having a bit of a routine, knowing your body can alleviate so much of that day-to-day stress and pressure. And just, knowing your patterns can help you get ahead of the game, and you are in control of your diabetes rather than diabetes being in control of you.
Some great tips there, Nicole, and we'll touch on some of those tips as well, hopefully later on, from all of you. I'm going to move on to the next question now, which is, and some of you have already alluded to some challenging times, but the question is, what moments or times in your life have you found it hardest to manage your well-being with type 1? So I'm going to come to somebody else who's not spoken just yet on the panel, but has spoken earlier today. So Tom, what are your thoughts on that question?
I think when I went to university, like Pete was talking about before, I think that was a hard time for me because I was 20 years old and I wanted to just be as normal as I could possibly be, just be a typical lad going to university, enjoying my time, and trying to manage diabetes alongside that was really difficult because like the guys have already said in the panel discussion already, it is 24/7, and is it, you can't really take a break away from diabetes. You're always thinking of it. So it's really hard and it can impact how you feel. But now, even now, as like Emma was saying, like I'm a parent of 2 children, and it's hard juggling. You're constantly juggling everything. Like them spinning plates I talked about before, that I get up in the morning and I'm constantly thinking about diabetes. I'm making sure that I can drive to work safely. I come home, I work with children with autism, and then I come home and then I've got a family, and I'm always thinking about my diabetes and how it impacts me, but also my family and my wife as well, because it can have an impact on her negatively as well. So these are the sort of things that can be challenging.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tom. And I wanted to come to Ruby next. Ruby, what are your thoughts on maybe times that you might have found it really particularly challenging or more difficult than other times?
Well, for me, I'm an actor, so if I'm about to go on stage, I've just done a run of Macbeth and I'm doing a tour at the moment. If I'm about to go on stage for 2 hours, I want to make sure my blood's perfect and I'm not going hypo. So I kind of overcompensate sometimes. Chris, obviously you do football, so you know what it's like when you've got that anxiety and pressure to perform well. So, and if I have an audition as well, if I'm meant to sing an opera song, like everybody else can just think, oh, how am I going to sing this? How am I going to technically do this? But we've got that added pressure of my diabetes, which in a way, I guess we can use it to our advantage, because then maybe we're not as stressed or nervous as we have something else to focus on. But that is probably one of the hardest things I found to manage.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. And I'd certainly say when it comes to sport and physical activity that actually a lot of my time is spent focusing on type 1 diabetes before I can even consider the performance element. Yeah. So actually I don't get that nervous about the performance element of playing sport at any level, because actually I've got to get the type 1 bit right before I can even think about that. So
Can I also add on? I feel like that, like with Ruby or with teaching, I'm sure other guys have similar things, is that when you are hypo, I feel like I'm letting other people down, that I just need to quickly treat that hypo treatment and get back to what I'm doing. And then that kind of makes you anxious and feel overwhelmed and impact on your mental health, that you're worrying, aren't you? And it's not our fault. And it can massively impact, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It can weigh heavy and weigh in different environments when people rely on you, whether that's in team sport, whether that's in your work and your industry that you do. I think it's that the challenging part of how you are can impact others, as well as then just trying to get it right for yourself. So yeah, definitely hear all of what you're saying there. Jim, what are your thoughts on this? I know we've had a discussion and there's a particular time that you felt it challenging, and I wonder if you want to share a little bit around that.
Yeah, you know, Tom, I so hear you with the hypo hiding. And one thing I really get emotional about is when I look back at a time where I fought through a hypo. If that's been, I did a lot of acting at university, and I used to go onto the stage and I would have a hypo, but I would be too scared to say anything. And I know that my performance when I'm having a hypo is just so much worse. And then reflecting back on how you could have been a better version of yourself is really challenging. And even at work, when I'm presenting in front of people and I feel a hypo coming, I'm still to this day too embarrassed to say anything. And it's just something I can't get over. And I think that's a real issue. And it's the part of the job that no one sees. It's that part of the job where, the things that people see, like the injections, as you say, Chris, and when I'm censoring, that's fine. That's when it's great, because you can see and you're measuring it. But when people aren't seeing what's going on in your head, and that constant anxiety, how am I going to have a hypo? Am I going to have a hyper? It's just absolutely exhausting. And, especially like at university, I played so much football, but the culture was you need to drink loads and you need to go out loads. I don't want to draw attention to myself. I wanted to do that, but unfortunately, you've got to be mature and you just can't, because it's really dangerous. And I think that, just along with forgetting my insulin, the amount of times I've let people down, my family, friends, being on holiday, where I've been on holiday and I've forgotten spare insulin and things like that. And it makes me feel like I've ruined people's people's time as well. So I think there's just so much to it. It's so complex. It's hyper complex, and people don't see that part. So that's what really gets to me.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Jim, and thank you all for sharing those experiences. I know that they're challenging. They're not easy to talk about, and the things that we go through isn't always easy to talk about at any time. Claire, you just raised your hand. Is there something you wanted to chip in on?
Yeah, it's really emotional listening to everybody sharing this. So I'm going to apologise in advance in case I break down into tears. But I think one of the things that I've found really hard as a mum is managing my son's expectations, and particularly when we're out of routine. Like, I actually find the weekends so much harder than the week, because we're in a routine and it's, you know, breakfast, lunch and dinner, fairly scheduled time. We've got set activities and I can manage that. But it's actually like when you go on holiday and you think, oh, I've had to bring diabetes on holiday with us. Well, this is rubbish, isn't it? And, you know, what you want, an ice cream in the middle of the afternoon, and then I've got a 9-year-old who's having some huge conflict with himself, because does he want to have an ice cream but have more insulin, or does he just want to not have an ice cream but then his sisters want an ice cream? And it's all these little things that on a day-to-day basis I can avoid all of that, but it's special occasions, times that normally you would think are really fun, and switch off times, they're actually so much harder. And don't even get me started on birthday parties.
Yeah, it's a great point, Claire, and you know, the panel might agree as well that I think routine is actually normally the friend of type 1 diabetes, I've found, and over many years I can see a few nods from others. So yeah, routine seems to be our friend. As soon as we do something that's slightly spontaneous or we haven't planned well for it, it kind of, type 1 rears its ugly head at us and creates a challenge that we obviously didn't foresee. So yeah, I can hear you on that, Claire, and I'm judging on everyone else's reaction. It's quite clear. I think many of us see that as well. I'm going to ask one more question. Hopefully there's some questions from the audience as well. So if you haven't posed your question in the comment section, if you're watching along, please do, and we're coming to those in a second. For the panel then, if you particularly want to answer this question, stick your hand in the air just so I can see who's keen for this one. So the question is, how do you feel society's perceptions of type 1 diabetes impact on our well-being? Go on, Jim, you've got your hand. You can go first, and then hopefully someone else will chip in after.
Yeah, I am a real advocate in that there's not enough information about type 1. I don't like how when I explain it to some people still to this day, it's still dismissed. And I think the example there, you know, is in things like, you know, if people knew type 1 and what it's really about, I wouldn't be made to feel marginalized when I don't want to do things like binge drink to play football and things like that, because people would understand that it's actually really dangerous. And I just think that there needs to be more knowledge around what a hypo is, and not just a hypo, also hyperglycemic, and how you feel when you're high and your energy levels. And people, I don't think, are actually aware of that. And I think people put diabetes into one bracket, which I quote, isn't that just where you have to eat cake or stab yourself sometimes? And it just annoys me when I hear people are basically just making something so complex into a one-liner like that, and you have to laugh it off, because I would never want to get annoyed with people, but I find that kind of thing really difficult.
Yeah. There was a few hands there. That's great news. So I think Ruby stuck her hand up just first, and I'll come to Nicole, then Temi after. So go on, Ruby.
Yeah, I think we're all probably thinking the same thing. I think in our generation, we grew up on internet memes, Family Guy, South Park, that just take the mick of diabetes constantly. Right, saying, oh, I guess you got diabetes from a Mars bar. And there was this, I made a TikTok the other day, because I make diabetic TikTok content, about this woman who took her child to the London Palladium to go see Peter Pan, and her child had type 1 diabetes. And then there was a joke of, oh, don't eat that, you'll get diabetes and be fat, or something like that. Something happened. I didn't watch it, but this child then cried his eyes out and felt victimized and blamed himself, because he thought, oh, maybe I did this to myself. And that this is happening in 2024. And I just feel like in such a great diverse world where we're coming on in leaps and bounds, type 1 diabetes seems to be at the bottom, which is why I'm so grateful that JDRF are doing events like this for us, and that we're all speaking up about it, because we are trying to make a change.
Yeah. And we'll continue to do that as a charity. We're really keen on raising the level of awareness and education that exists outside of our community, because ultimately the knowledge outside of our community also impacts on us all within the community, because we go into the spaces where others are facilitating things for us. So they need to know more about diabetes and type 1 diabetes. So as a charity, we are on it, and I'm really grateful that we're able to put on events like this to bring that to life and showcase that too. Nicole, you were next. What were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, very similar to what Ruby just said, is that I think there's a lot of shame around diabetes. People seem to think that it's something that you brought on yourself. A lot of times people say, oh, is it because you ate too much sugar as a child? And also they seem to think that if you exercise, look after yourself, and don't eat any bread, in particularly bread, that you will be fine and you don't need insulin. So there is a lack of education, especially around type 1 diabetes, and the shame around it as well. You kind of feel ashamed to wear your pod or your CGM out in the public, because you will worry people are going to judge you. And I think that is a big problem that we do have, is that the more we hide, the more we have to deal with it in silence and in the dark, where if you are out and about and something is going wrong, you are having a hypo and you need someone's help, or you need to quickly just take some time out, down a juice, we need to be able to do that. But if you are hiding it, people don't know what you are going through, and that makes living with type 1 a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Nicole. And Temi, we'll come to you lastly on this question, then hopefully Sarah's got a couple for us from social media as well that she can pull up on screen. So Temi, what were your thoughts around this question? Oh, is Temi still there? Looks like she might have frozen. So does anyone else have a view on that before we go over to social media comments?
Can
Tom?
I just jump in really quickly, Chris?
Yeah, go on, Emma.
Just to say, yeah, I completely agree with what everybody has said around that sort of guilt and that stigma and feeling like we have to hide it. And I think for me, that's meant that probably for 15 years of my diabetes journey, I just didn't talk about it. I didn't say anything. I just hid it away, and I just completely kept everything in. And for my mental well-being, that was almost the worst thing to do. And so for me, like being able to talk about your diabetes, whether it's just to one person, and I know we shouldn't have this responsibility, right, to change the public perception of type 1, but actually no one is going to do that for us, right? So if you have the opportunity to say to one person, to correct that person, to be able to speak out on it, I just think as a community, we have such a responsibility to do that, because I do think it makes an incredible difference. And actually for me, that has really helped. I know we're going to come on to tips, but that has really helped me in my mental well-being, is actually being able to then talk about it. And so being able to be open and share makes such a big difference to all of us as a community.
Yeah, I agree, Emma. And Tom, I can imagine that knowing what you're involved in would advocate along similar lines. Anything else you want to add?
I was basically going to say the same as Emma, really. But sometimes it can be overwhelming, though. Like last night, I actually went to a works do, which I haven't been out in a long time, actually. And I went to get something from like a sausage roll, a simple sausage roll. And even one of my colleagues was like, oh, you allowed to have that? And it's sometimes overwhelming, isn't it, when people say that? And sometimes you have the mental capacity to maybe have that chat back and say, look, I'm allowed, and you can discuss it and go through it. But sometimes it hits you, doesn't it? And it's too much to maybe advocate for yourself in that moment. But yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to, when people say them sort of comments to you, should you be having that? I wouldn't question them, what they're eating or what they're doing. So it's hard when people say things like that back at you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all again for sharing on that question. Hopefully we've got a few from social media and from the stream to pull up on screen now. So there we go. There's the first one. So have a little read of that and then put your hand up if you're keen to tackle that one. So I'll read it out as well. Any tips for how to teach your child to have a healthy respect for the condition without scaring them or letting them feel controlled by it? A bit like the ocean, having a healthy respect for the power of the wave and tides, but not being afraid of the water. sounds like that's pretty much positioned towards you, Claire. So do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I think for us, it's sometimes we just have to let Edward be angry. So particularly for him, sort of trigger points are having to go to the hospital and listen to everybody talking about his diabetes. Like, the team are incredible at the hospital, but it's a long time and it's a lot. So we now get in the car and close the windows and have a little screaming session just to like let it all out afterwards, and like trying to show him that that's okay. It is rubbish. And he, he'll say, "Oh, diabetes sucks." And I'm like, "Yes, it sucks." And we sort of just scream it out. And that's really helped him, actually. Something else as well is about trying to help him to take some ownership of his condition. Obviously, I don't want to burden him with it. It's a lot. And I know that he's carrying a phone. He actually got a phone before his big sister, which caused all sorts of ructions in our household. But he's got those alerts, and he is very, very worried about it sometimes. But we want him to feel that he can talk about it. So he's taking part in the JDRF Try for Type 1 fundraiser, which starts on the 1st of February. And he's going to do an assembly for his whole school. He's made a PowerPoint, and he's really taken ownership of this. And it's what he wants to tell the other children in his primary school about type 1, what it means for him, dealing with some of the misconceptions that some of the children in his class articulated to him and to me when he was first diagnosed. So I think, to try and sum up, it's about letting them feel angry and frustrated sometimes, sharing that with them and showing them that you feel that too, but also trying to slowly let them take some ownership of it. And it's not just something that other people do to him. He can have some control as well.
Brilliant. Great advice, Claire, and thank you for sharing that experience that you've got there and the things that you're trying with your son. Have we got another question, Sarah, from social media to put to the panel? So here we go. Has diabetes tech helped your well-being? So does anyone feel strongly about that question and answering that one? Jim, go on.
I think I might say something here which it's not necessarily going to fit with everyone, but I find it very overwhelming. I find it really scary. I'm worried the impact it's going to have at my job, playing sport, meeting new people. And I actually mentally am really struggling to get onto an Omnipod because of the way it looks, because of the added intensity. So I'm very reluctant to leave my Freestyle Libre and learn a whole new kind of dynamic of how to deal with my diabetes. I find it really nerve-wracking. It really stresses me out. And I run marathons, and I don't know how I would be able to do that with it. And I feel like I've only just got to grips with Freestyle Libre. So for me, I find it very nerve-wracking, and I find it really intense and a little bit scary, if I'm being very honest.
And I think it's, completely okay for us to feel all different ways about diabetes tech. It's so new in our lives, the amount of tech that's come into our world in the last 10 years compared to where it was the previous 10, 15, 20 years, and also how we perceive the word tech. And I think that, again, across the years, what do you perceive a change in insulin and the way that we manage through different types of insulin as a tech change? And I certainly see that in my 25 years of it. So I think we've all got our own personal experience of how tech is. I saw a few hands. So I think Nicole I saw, and Temi and Claire. So we'll go Nicole first, then Temi, then Claire.
For me, I found it extremely helpful. I've been on a pump and a CGM since the beginning of my diagnosis. I'm also someone who quite likes data, and having that data available has taught me a lot about my body, my patterns. I know what different foods, different exercises does to my blood sugars, and that has helped me plan. So if I know this is what my day is going to look like, I know, okay, this is what I need to do to prevent spikes or prevent hypos. So it is a burden because it is constantly there and it's alerting you, you are low, you are high, you are low, you are high, multiple times a day. And if you have other people on your Dexcom as well, who's like, hey, did you see you are low? And I'm like, I've got this. I know, thank you. So it can be overwhelming, but yeah, I think it's also or at least for me, it was changing the way I looked at it. It's a tool to help me. It's not there to punish me and point out my faults. It's there to highlight areas that I can improve and I can change.
Great points of view there, Nicole. Temi, something to add on that one?
Yeah, so I think that I was actually quite similar to Jim in that I said no to having a pump the first time I was offered it. Probably like the first 2 times I was offered it, I said no. I didn't like the idea of being able to be visibly diabetic. I was very, like, I always said one of the benefits of diabetes is that it's hidden. Nobody needs to know unless you tell them, and you don't feel like you have this like visible illness. And I knew that if I had a pump, it's going to be on me, it's going to be bulky. I felt that it was going to, like, even superficially, I felt like it was going to ruin my outfits. I wanted to be able to wear whatever I wanted, play netball whenever I wanted. And I had self-funded the Freestyle Libre for like 6 months and it kept getting knocked out during netball. So I was like, a pump is going to be so much worse. I really don't want it. And it wasn't until one of my flatmates' boyfriend's sister was also diabetic and had apparently had a pump for about 6 years, and he was like, you never see it, like, I promise you never see it. He was like, you probably should go and get it. Like, if your main reason is that you don't want it to be seen, it's not a good enough reason. And I was kind of like, you don't live with it, so you should, keep your opinion to yourself. But he was completely right, because the one I even had at the time, it was like an AccuCheck one, and it looked a bit bigger than a pager, and I would like clip it onto whatever clothes I was wearing, and by the end of it I was so used to it. And then I switched over to an Omnipod, which is even smaller, even more discreet. But at this point I'm happy to wear it wherever. Like, it doesn't bother me, but it does take time, because if I went back to myself 5 years ago and said, hey, like, have your Freestyle Libre on one arm and have your pod on the other arm, I would feel really upset by that. I would look at it and be like, that's not what I want for myself. But me personally, I love to snack, and just the fact that the pump gives me the ability to give myself insulin whenever, wherever, and I don't feel the need to try and avoid bolusing or avoid enjoying what I want to eat. It's a great, I just think it's a great bit of technology that has changed my life, but I'm very aware that I was really afraid of going down that route, so I get it.
Yeah. No, but again, thank you for building on that, Temi. And I can hear it in all of what you're saying around diabetes tech. I can resonate with it. And I think lastly on this question, I just want to come to Claire as a slightly different view from a parent's perspective. Claire, what are your thoughts?
So just quickly, so for us, the technology enables us to remotely look after Edward, but it also can be really challenging. So, for example, if he's at school and my phone and my watch are bleeping and telling me he's having a hypo, I have to sit there and think, at what point do I ring and say, is somebody dealing with this? Because I know he's running around playing football or catch or whatever. And I know that sometimes in those situations, he doesn't want to deal with it because he's having a fun time. And so it's quite difficult to put your trust in somebody else when you've got that information. And people have said to me about, do you want to turn it off during the day? And I just can't. I can't do that. But it is amazing to be able to monitor it. But also I do ring the office a lot and say, and the answer is always, yep, somebody's with him. It's fine. But it's having that constant information can be quite tricky. And to pick up on something Emma had said earlier, just about perceptions, one of the things that I find quite difficult is when people say, oh, but at least he's diagnosed now. The technology is amazing. It must be so easy to manage. And listening to some of the other speakers today, obviously the technology has come so far, and I cannot even imagine having to deal with some of the really early technologies that people had to manage diabetes. But also it is still really hard. And so kind of dealing with those public perceptions, I think, is something that I want to look at going forward.
Yeah, great points of view there, Claire, and yeah, from always insightful for me to listen to it from somebody's view who's so close to the condition, but I can't mirror in my experience as somebody just living with it. You know, it's always really, really interesting to hear parents' views on type 1 diabetes on all different themes. Just now, in the interest of time, we have gone over, so I really want to get to that final question. And if you can, in as short amount of time and as words as possible, could you pass on that bit of knowledge or that bit of advice that you would give to others that are coping with or living with type 1 diabetes about how you maintain your well-being on a regular basis with the condition? So I'm going to go around the screen, and if you can, keep it as succinct as possible. So Nicole first.
Cool. So I've got 3 main points. It is always be prepared is the first one. So get yourself a couple of strategies in place that you know will help, whether it's pre-bolusing to avoid the post-meal spikes, get to know your patterns. And then the second one is get help. Don't struggle in silence. I've done it for too many years on my own. I should have sought help much earlier in my life, whether it's from the social community, whether it's from charities such as JDRF. Just don't feel like you have to get through this on your own. And then lastly is be kind to yourself. A bad day, a bad period, a bad event doesn't make you a bad diabetic. It can teach you a lot, and you can learn from it, but don't let it get you down.
Thank you, Nicole. Jim?
So my main kind of advice, especially as I've got older, is what I would tell my younger self, is just admit the vulnerability, just admit the vulnerability of it and be like, do you know what, guys, if you don't know, people just be like, I just want to say, because it will make you feel better if you have a hypo and think, I've got type 1 diabetes. It's really difficult. I really don't enjoy it. I just want you to know. When people know, especially in a sort of social situation, makes you feel better, makes you feel at ease. And it ties me into my second point, which is when you're upfront, people just don't mind as much as you think. I've always had this stigma that people are going to think I'm slightly weaker or slightly behind because of my diabetes. It's just not the case. I think that's something I am having to deal with. People don't mind. And the other thing is find inspiration in it. Think of yourself. You are actually sometimes a better version of yourself with diabetes, because what you're going through, the things you'll learn will help you to become a leader, to become an inspiration in yourself, because you're just learning so much. And like, I would be like, honestly, yeah, just as you said, give yourself a break. You're doing really well. So, you know, be thankful in that sense that you're learning so much.
Brilliant, Jim. And Tom?
As we're doing 3 points, I guess. First one is doing what we're doing now is talking with other people who are living the experience of diabetes, whether it's us people with diabetes or with Claire as a parent or someone. Like, I think it's great that people find people to talk to who understand, and that helps with your mental health and community. And then lastly is this. I've got this cup, this mug from a good friend, Santiago, and it says everything is okay. And everything is okay, guys. Diabetes is hard, it is relentless, but you know, we go again, we start again the next day, and we have each other, and that's what it's all about. So just be kind to yourself. It is a hard condition to live with, whether you're living with diabetes or you're a family member, but just keep doing your best and speak to your friends, your family, your healthcare professionals. Keep being awesome, yeah?
Cheers, Tom. And Emma?
Yeah, I think really the main things for me are finding your community, your tribe, those people that are going to support you, who are going to encourage you, who are going to be there with you when you're down. Talk about your experience. Sharing your experience is so incredibly powerful, whether that's to one other person who's living in the same situation as you are, all the way up to, we're seeing Marietta there talking about how they go out there and look for blogs to drive research agendas. Talking about your experience is so, so powerful. So I think that's an incredible thing to be able to do. yeah, I think the last one is as everyone else has said, be kind to yourself. Don't try and worry about the small bits of things that you cannot control. Focus on the things that you can and try and find the joys that you can do in life.
Thanks, Emma. Great points. Claire?
So I'm going to do this from Edward's point of view. So I would say the 3 things for him are Star Wars. If ever he's feeling really sad, he doesn't want an injection, if I put Star Wars on, anything's fine. So Star Wars. The other thing is play therapy. So we actually paid for some private play therapy, and those sessions were really, really empowering for him. And as a result, he now builds dens everywhere, but they're his spaces, and I would really recommend looking into play therapy. And I know there are NHS play therapies available as well. And then the third thing for us, which is not something I would universally recommend, is our puppy. So we now have a family dog, and she's Edward's little friend, and he talks to her about his diabetes, and he tells her what it means. When we first got her, I caught him lying on the kitchen floor with her, and he was telling her, he said, Daphne, that's our puppy, I've got diabetes and it's really rubbish. And he told her all about it and explained what it meant. And she's always there for a cuddle if he's feeling a bit low. So Star Wars, play therapy, and a puppy.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire. Temi?
Yeah, so just to sort of echo what everyone else has said, I think giving yourself grace, because I think for many times I've thought, why haven't I got this down yet? Why isn't it perfect? You know, sometimes I think I've had it for over 10 years. If you were doing anything for that long and you still weren't amazing at it, you would really feel like a failure. But this is not like anything else. So it doesn't matter if it's 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's ever changing. So give yourself grace. And I think that the other thing that I would say is that, you know, you need to find people who are going through what you're going through, because like we've all said, no one gets it like another diabetic. Like, it doesn't matter who you have in your life, how understanding they are, how loving they are. Someone who knows that what you're thinking before you even said it, is a person you need to be around. And for me personally, being online, being able to express how I feel online and have people reply being like, say my sugars are 22 today as well. And I'm like, wow, okay, fine. You know, again, you're able to give yourself grace from that, because you're like, I'm not the problem. It's okay. Like other people are going through it too. So yeah, that's why I'd say give yourself grace and basically find a community.
Brilliant. Thanks, Temi. And lastly, Ruby.
Yeah, backing up what Temi said, that was amazing, and giving yourself grace. And she also mentioned earlier not being so obsessed with it, because I can do that. I go on both ends. I'm a bit like, oh my goodness, I was 22, I'm the worst diabetic in the world, and you know, just give yourself a break. And also going back to what Pete was saying, positivity is hugely important. For a start, I think I'll round off this whole thing. Everyone that is on here today has accepted you're diabetic, and you clearly look after yourself. So amazing. Give yourself like a well done, because it's hard being diabetic, and you're all here and you clearly know what you're doing.
Thanks, Ruby. And just from me and from everyone at JDRF, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's joined in to watch this and contribute, but equally to all of you as panelists for the amazing contribution you've given today. We have run over a bit, but hopefully everyone that's continued to join in has found that so insightful. I mean, from my perspective, it was brilliant to be able to share it and speak to you all. So a massive thank you for the contribution today. And I just also wanted to mention for those that are watching still, that a number of the panelists today have come through our Share Your Story form that we have recently shared, because we are trying to encourage as many people with type 1 diabetes and impacted by type 1 diabetes as possible to share their story with us. So if you do want to share in future events, whether that's in person or on a virtual event like this, please do get in contact with us. You'll be able to find the Share Your Story link in the comments section. Myself and Sarah will be posting that soon. So please do get in contact with us if you would like to do that. And it's just lastly for me to say a massive thank you again, and to pass back over to Sarah for us to round off today's event.
Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your impactful stories with us. Your openness and your authenticity is incredibly inspiring and really do enrich these virtual events. So thank you so much for your time. I know there are a couple of questions that didn't get answered in the comments section, which I'm sure the panelists will do their best to get back to. So now I'm just going to finish off with some last bits from JDRF, including some upcoming events and opportunities for you guys to get involved in. So throughout the year, we offer virtual sessions just like today's, as well as several incredible in-person events, which take place across all the 4 nations. So first up on our Discovery agenda, we have our in-person event taking place in London in just a few weeks. So due to incredible popular demand, the event is actually officially sold out. But if you are interested, please still join our waiting list to be notified if anyone can no longer make it. Additionally, we have the option to register your interest for future events taking place in 2024, so you can be the first to hear about our upcoming events as soon as they are confirmed. We also have some upcoming fundraising opportunities taking place in 2024. So we have the London Landmarks Half Marathon taking place on the 7th of April, which is taking place on the closed roads through central London, which is the only half marathon to go through both the City of London and the City of Westminster. We also have the Brighton Marathon on the 7th of April, which is an iconic marathon taking runners through the city of Brighton and onto the seafront. This is a fantastic alternative for anyone who didn't get a place in the London Marathon. And then we also have our ultra marathons, which are hugely popular. But you can check out all these events on our website or email events@jdrf.org.uk for some more information. So as Chris actually just mentioned, we are currently looking for people affected by type 1 to come along to our virtual and/or in-person events to share their experiences. So if you are interested, you can scan the QR code on the screen or follow the link that will be put into the chat and let us know what themes you're passionate about and a little bit about yourself. Again, a massive thank you to our wonderful panelists today for sharing their story with us. If you haven't already, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to hear all about these opportunities and many more. And finally, we would really appreciate your feedback through our evaluation form, so we know what you liked, what you didn't like, and any improvements we can make to our future sessions. If you have a couple of minutes now, please follow the link that has been dropped into the chat or hover your phone over the QR code on the screen. If you would prefer to do this later, then we will also be sending you a link in a few hours, so keep an eye on your inbox. We really do value your opinions and take on all your feedback, so we make sure that these events keep improving. A massive thank you to our wonderful JDRF colleagues, our wonderful sponsors, our speakers, and everyone who has joined in today. We hope it's been an event you've enjoyed and taken some useful information from. We really do appreciate you being here with us today. So we are going to keep this webinar open for another half an hour or so to give you a chance to read anything you might have missed in the comments section. We will also be sending out a YouTube link to this event through email, so keep an eye out for that. And please share this, this link far and wide. We want to make sure as many people get to watch this event as possible. So thank you again for attending. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we hope to see you at a future Discovery Day event. Thank you very much.